I'm not saying that. I'm saying that if you had, like, if you could go to the shop and buy like potions, right? Like they're not just like multivitamins or like Red Bull or some shit, right? Like they're
So
potions,
if you went to a potion
right?
seller and you were like, potion seller, I need your best potions. You're saying that they should be able to
No,
provide
specifically,
you with
no. You want the best potions. That's gonna obviously run you like $1,000, whatever. I'm saying like, what potions are you going to the potion seller like for, like on the reg? You know, like
the strongest potions.
What's the like $20 potion, or like even like the $2 potion that you like, you know, you maybe have daily?
I just can't deal with the cold opens anymore. Like sometimes Sophie just comes out with like just the most absurd shit, and I'm just supposed to sit here and do things on the fly. I've got nothing for that. I've never thought about what it would be like.
You're a victim.
To be a potion seller, or like what I would buy in a potion shop.
Holding out on those potions. He doesn't want to admit it, but he's been on those big muscle potions.
That's true, Tim. Actually, yes. You will grow 5 inches of that one muscle that you need. I see that one a lot. Yeah.
That's too
Wait,
many,
which muscle? What's the one muscle you need?
Oh, you know, the one.
Wait, I don't know though. What is it? Oh, the brain muscle.
Yeah,
of course.
Oh, that sounds cool. I want 5 inches of more brain.
Just like pushing right up against that skull.
You have to make sure you have the skull potion first. If you don't have the skull potion first, you're going to be in trouble.
Yeah. It's like you know, when lobsters, they keep growing and their shells can't, like, you know, contain them, and they just die.
You have to shed your skull, just like sort of like.
Why do we want to do this again? Why do we want to?
Well, no, that's what we're saying. If you got to take the skull potion first to enhance your skull, so you've got space for the brain potion.
Okay,
and then there's a little like gap where you have a big skull, and there's just empty space in there.
So, for instance, in the chat, the email I just put 5 head. Is that an example?
No. Shit, I actually have a bubble in my skull. Like. I can show you this. Look, this is the 3D print from my skull before the surgery.
You're such a
This
freak.
is my sinus. Yeah, I know, and I love it.
Me too.
There's like a bubble of air, and if you look in the sinus, it's actually connected. Like it's.
Oh whoa!
When I breathe, there's a little bit like right there.
So your brain's right there.
That's my brain. Yeah, it's tiny, as you can see. It's entirely smooth.
Welcome to Red Planet, everyone. It's episode 42. Look at this. How is it going? I hope you're all having a wonderful day.
And can we get a round of applause for everyone who made it over to Mule Stream? Because let's face it, sometimes try to get confused
Very nice.
Nice. Everyone who made it over to Mule Stream, because it gets confusing. And when the new year starts, we're going to be streaming from like the Red Planet Twitch account.
Red Planet Live.
And you don't have to run around trying to find us all the time. But until then, it's gonna be Red Planet Live. You can follow it now, right?
Go follow it right
now.
Go
follow it now. Right now. But
get ahead of the curve. Sorry.
I need to
very excited over here. Very excited. But until then, thank you for following us around Twitch. I think the only channel we haven't streamed from is Tim's.
That's right.
Yeah.
But
But we never will.
We never will.
We're going to have the Red Planet channel.
Oh,
tragic.
Sorry, Tim.
We should stream on Tim's channel just once.
Yeah, just
as a
like
treat.
A special little day.
A special little Tim stream.
Tim day.
We'll take some special potions and stream on my stream.
Already following? Of course, B-Rest already following. Of course, B-Rest already following.
Let's stream on Tim's channel on 420 next year and take some special potions.
Let's all get Tim banned. Let's ban Tim.
Yeah, let's ban Tim. Yeah, that's a good point.
Everyone show your 5 inches.
I'm probably the one that would be like, I would be the least affected by that. Being the only one that is
You're like, whatever.
Yeah, I'd be like, okay. I mean, we have to make it worth it. Is the thing, you know? Like, we'd have to. Like, if it was worth it, you know, I don't mind. I'll
Tim,
adapt. I'll survive.
Tim, I am wondering though, what's the most base thing you did this week?
Oh, okay. So I was thinking about this last night, and so it's kind of like, it's not really like a based, as in it like affects the actual world too much, but probably because I mean I've just been like so busy with work over the last like couple of weeks or whatever, so I haven't actually, you know, gotten out there. But I did a really cool tattoo for a friend of mine who's also
Ooh.
a tattoo artist. They're Vietnamese, and we did this like big, like it was like this gigantic like cover-up situation sort of thing of Human City. There's like a Notre Dame cathedral, and it's kind of like a symbol of like, you know, like colonialism or whatever to a lot of Vietnamese people. So we did like a gigantic like burning Notre Dame cathedral.
Oh,
Yeah.
Like,
Have you got
from,
a
like,
pic of that, Tim? Have you got an image of that?
yeah, I mean, I can't really post it. But,
Okay.
it goes.
Yeah,
When
fair
we
enough.
only started it, we just like outlined it, but it goes from like their like kind of the front of their, I guess, like pelvis region all the way up to like kind of up like here, like up.
Yeah.
You know,
that's so
and it's
fucking
like,
cool.
yeah, and it was really cool because it was like it's on a buddy of mine, and it's like cool imagery, but also like they were saying that like they've had a lot of like body issues sort of thing like that, and it was like really like, you know, like one of the first times they've been able to be like, yeah, I fucking love this, you know. So
That's
that was really
fantastic.
Yeah.
cool. So that's not
I
like,
actually
a
tattooed
super
myself
base-
a bit this week.
Oh yeah. Well, is that your most base thing, or do you want to tell us about what was?
It's
I
pretty
think my most
base.
base thing is a book I started reading, but
Yeah.
and Conrad told me right before the stream that my base thing can be a book, so I'm getting away with it. I started
Conrad
reading
sets the rules.
Yeah, he does actually. I started reading Post-Capitalist Desire, the like the last Mark Fisher work, and it's like expanding my brain.
you like
I
Mark
need the Skull
Fisher?
Potion. Yeah, of course.
Oh my
Why
god!
would we not?
I know. I'm making a joke because you always talk about Mark Fisher. Of course, you like Mark Fisher.
My brain isn't expanding that much. I did not get it. Yeah, it's a good book. Anyway, I recommend it. It's really fucking cool. It's very base. My girlfriend was showing it to me, reading some of it, and she's already objecting in the chat that I wasn't crediting her. So she's mad as hell.
There you go.
And yeah, as I said, I also tattooed myself, which was kind of fun.
Nice.
You're gonna share that with us, or are you gonna?
It's a little cat batting a ball of string around, and it says "stray" above it. And I'm gonna extend the ball of string like along my leg and like between my other tattoos, so like the yarn just like wraps around everything.
So good.
Um,
That's so
yeah.
rad.
Yeah, and
That's
also my
awesome.
girlfriend is gonna help me with that one because I want to have it like filled in the silhouette of the cat. At the moment, it's an outline, and like it's just gonna take so fucking long to fill in a silhouette, like doing stick and poke. So I'm gonna like play video games while
do you
she
like
does
put
that or something.
do you like numb yourself, or do you just go like straight in? Like, how does that work?
I have a numbing cream, but it doesn't fucking work.
Yeah, no, that,
Just go
like
through the
90%
pain.
of that shit is just like a scam, right? Like there's some
Yeah.
that works, but there's pros and cons to using
Mhm.
different ones.
Yeah.
I personally, I don't really like them unless it's like absolutely necessary. Like sometimes you get it where someone's like, okay, I'm flying back to India tomorrow, and you know, we just got to get this shit done because I don't know if I'm ever going to come back. And it's like, all
Oh
right,
wow.
you know, yeah.
Yeah,
So,
no,
yeah.
I have. Yeah, like I say, I have a numbing cream, but it doesn't work. So I
I have
just
4%
kind of dive in.
lidocaine. I have 4% lidocaines, and I don't think that any of them work. So I think you have to get like a 5% is the trick. I don't know.
Yeah, I've seen like between 6 and 9.
Whoa!
But,
I
That's
didn't know
the
they made that
sex
high.
number. That's the
Yeah,
nice
yeah.
number.
You have to get medical licenses to get them in, you know, so there's like import companies
Unless you're
that
in
will get them.
Armenia.
yeah. Or you know, like there's other, you know, there's ways, but yeah. So but they're more like, yeah, they're not the kind that people just wander into a tattoo shop with and they're like, oh, I got this, you know, and it's like something that doesn't even have the ingredients listed, and they bought it off Facebook Marketplace, and
Nice.
you know, yeah, which is like, I would just never use anything like that, because it's kind of like, this is an unknown substance, and you want me to put it on and then perform like a minor surgery on you, like
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, like I mean, like you'll be opening up your like it will get in your blood.
yeah. Like,
Yeah.
and we have no idea what this is. It's just like super unethical to do anything like that. But
Yeah.
anyway, so what about Donald Jungle Mule? What is the most base thing that you partook in this week?
Well, even though it didn't go well, it didn't go how we wanted it to, I would still be classing it as a Pyrrhic victory. So basically, we had an eviction resistance on Thursday with Greater Manchester Tenants Union, and it was a guy, he's about 60 odd years old, unfortunately suffering with PTSD, alcoholism, this kind of stuff. And he's a war veteran. He was in the RAF. He was an engineer in the RAF for 25 years. And a housing association basically tricked him into signing his lease away, because you can't just evict people if you're in a housing association. They basically took advantage of him when he was drunk. He didn't know what he was signing.
Jesus.
Yeah, it's fucked. And then, so, the eviction just so happened to take place on one of the coldest days of the fucking year, so the cops weren't doing anything. Normally, generally speaking, in an eviction resistance, the cops don't turn up. The bailiff will phone and they'll be like, please, there's these anarchists that are stopping us from getting inside. And the cops will be like, sort your act out, you're a bailiff, and then just put the phone down. But because it was so cold, nothing was happening. So the cops had nothing to do. So they turned up, and even though we said to them, and we weren't being rowdy, we weren't being loud about it, we were just being very firm and just saying to the cops, we're just letting you know that you don't have a high court order for possession, so you can't forcibly enter this property. If you do, you'll be breaking the law. And if you allow someone else to, you'll be facilitating the breaking of the law. And I don't think I need to, get everyone to guess what happened. They threw us out of the way anyway. They didn't give a shit. And then he was evicted that day. When they got in there, they were looking a bit sheepish, because they could tell that this is just a guy that has had like a couple of neighbor complaints, basically. Like, that's all that's happened. He was helping other war veterans who are homeless, like by bringing them into his home and stuff like that. It's actually a really fucked up story, and it's just a fucked up situation. But like, we basically said there, right, listen, okay, tell you what, we'll concede there. You've got into his house, you've drilled the door off. We didn't want you to do it, but you have done. Let us rehome him. Let us make sure he's got somewhere to stay today. Please, just let us make sure that we could do this. And they did let us do that, because they were, like I say, as soon as they got in there and the guy was going, look, I've served this country for 25 years and this is what you're doing to me. You throw me out in -degree weather.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it's a death sentence. It's literally a death
Absolutely
sentence.
fucked.
And so they kind of let us basically make sure that he had a hotel room to stay in. So even though we couldn't prevent the eviction, we got him rehoused that night. Not rehoused. We got a roof over his head that night. And even if he didn't have, a hotel room to go back to, he had a thingy to go back to, a squat. One of the people that was there was sort of like in a squat and said, you can come and live with us. Not ideal for a disabled 60-plus-year-old veteran, but, it's better than him being on the streets. So that was the most base thing I did this week, even though it didn't go that well.
Yeah.
So there you go.
That's totally based,
right?
though.
Like, for all the kind of like, the shit that like, like the right say about like fucking, veterans and all this kind of shit like that. It's like, when they, like they just get treated like shit, right? Like, they don't accept that, like, oh yeah, we sent these people out to do pretty fucked up shit, and some of them might have, like PTSD and things like that from that. But if they don't come back and act like a totally normal, citizen or whatever, then then fuck them.
Yeah,
I feel like we only look at like radicalized veterans when it's like people who joined right-wing militias, but that's a huge opportunity to radicalize veterans to the left, because the country, like, no government like fucking takes care of their veterans.
I've met people like from that kind of background, not like no one in particular that is like, really being like from like kind of like our generation that has been as fucked up as, like a lot of like Vietnam vets and all that kind of stuff. Like definitely younger people that have like gone off to war. Like, there was a guy that I tattooed that was in like the New Zealand Special Forces, and he went over to Afghanistan. He went over there and he was like, wait a minute, like this whole thing is like, there's something, like this isn't what like, we were told we were doing, basically. And then he came back and just kind of like dropped out. And he's like, he's a he's a leftist now. I wouldn't go as far as saying he's like a communist or anything like that. But it's like, it is kind of a shame that it takes people doing that to kind of see how much of a scam it is. But can you really kind of blame them when it's like, world governments? Like, there's so much state ideology. They
put so much effort into like propaganda, and then like it's mostly like it's mostly 18-year-olds who they're tricking into doing this shit.
Yeah. Like young kids getting sucked into it. Like even like the whole thing with like over here we used to have, and they're one of our major political parties is talking about bringing it back in, and we do have a couple like similar programs, but like a whole thing where it's like kids that are like troubled kids will get sent to these boarding schools, and it's like a military school that is kind of just like a pipeline into that. It's like that is just so incredibly fucked up. But the system that we had, like I've had friends whose fathers went through these systems because it was like particularly with like Maori and Pacifica kids, if they were troubled or whatever like that, and a lot of the time the trouble was like over bullshit stuff, they'd get sent to these Borstal schools, get pipelined into the army or navy, and then like lead these like terrible things would happen to them that end up, and that's where they'd end up coming back out really fucked up, but they would have these new, I'm gonna say martial skills or whatever, and that's where like the mongrel mob formed directly out of that, which is like one of New Zealand's like most notorious kind of gangs, and and a lot of them like ended up in these homes. There was like severe abuse going on, that there was like a big expose on it recently. It's like all these guys are like, and this is like just like they're going in.
I just got an ad for the Navy on Mule's channel.
Jesus Christ!
Just now.
It's like they say like, we just need to put you in these.
That's why you should sub off Twitch, everybody.
And it's just like I don't know, like it's a really fucked up thing, and I think like for a lot of like Maori and Pacifica people, it's like a particular sore spot. Like the kind of like the army and shit is like like they say there's a lot of stuff, like when I was growing up there's a lot of stuff in the newspaper about like the warrior gene, which is like a thing that they said that all like Polynesian people and stuff had, which made them natural warriors and fighters.
Oh my
God.
This is like I am turning my oof dial to the mid-sized.
Like this was like literally on like mainstream news TV, like fucking 6 p.m. sort of thing, and that's apparently why we're all so good at rugby and all this kind of shit like that.
Fuck
off. And so there was like there's like this thing where it was like you could just like, why go to university, why do this or whatever, you can just go join the army, you can just go do this. So it's like this like like this really wild thing where it's like they're literally just saying like, you guys are the fucking warrior race, like don't bother don't bother pursuing any of this shit or whatever like that, just go join the army and serve the empire and shit. It's like
Thanks.
So that's why
I hate it.
I feel like I've got a lot to say about that shit, that's part of it. But
That
anyway,
makes
we
sense.
should get back to what was the most based thing my good friend Kira Chats did this week.
Well, not anything nearly as impressive as everyone else. But other than being a slut, as per usual.
I mean, I just said I read a book. It's not impressive.
Well, you'd be surprised. That's extremely impressive compared to like what I normally do. Mule and I, we listen.
We're not good books.
No, we're not. We're good. No. But I think the most base thing I did was spending more time with my family. My mom's getting older. I moved back from Seattle to now Anytown, USA, where I currently reside, to spend time with my family, to help take care of my mom and all sorts of stuff like that. And also to spend time with my sister and just like in general, just try to pitch in. And so I did that this week. And so like my mom's been sleeping over at my place because she's been having a lot of anxiety. So that's been helping her. We've just been spending more time together. And I'm trying to like, as much as I don't see eye to eye with her on many things, I'm still trying to find a way to make that work. And I don't begrudge anyone who can't, because sometimes those differences are just too profound. But that's kind of what I did.
I think that's super basic.
And then got really mad at people on Twitter. So I don't know if that counts.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I also got banned on Twitter, so that's another
base
thing. Yeah. Well, no, it's a temporary suspension. It's been all week, but I'm back in like a day. So anyway, we should start getting through the news because we have a guest coming on that is kind of a big deal. So we want to
a cool guest. Yeah,
we should start.
Kira, I think you are the first news person this week.
All right, Amazon. You know it, you love it. Amazon workers.
It's Kira Day.
It's Kira Day. Amazon workers will go on formal strike for the first time in the UK.
Bloody
which is a big deal.
In it, brother. Wonderful.
What you think of that strike, governor?
So employees at Amazon's Coventry warehouse in central England voted Friday to go on strike, and the walkout is going to probably happen in January of the new year. And so about 1,000 people work at that particular site. The reason for their strike, I don't think anyone really Amazon, they're not paying, they're underpaid and overworking. So the workers are unhappy with their pay increase of 3%, which is, I guess, 50 pence per hour, which does not even remotely keep up with like the massive increase of like cost of living. And so they want Amazon to pay them a minimum of £15 an hour, which again is like nothing, but it's pathetic that Amazon's not providing even that. So let's see here.
It's because Amazon's such a tiny little mom and pop business.
That's right.
Yeah, they're just petty bourgeoisie.
They're job creators, so we really shouldn't be mean to them.
Just a little guy.
He's a little small bean. Small bean. Yeah. So about 98% of the workers who turn out to vote opted to go on strike on a turnout of more than 63%. So
very nice.
That's a pretty big showing. Yeah. And so just generally speaking, I guess we can read through all of the notes for this, but in general, I think we all kind of have a decent feel for like Amazon's repulsive everything, like their repulsive carbon footprint, their repulsive mistreatment of workers and union busting that's baked into the way that they train their managers. If you've ever caught one of those leaked videos, how they're just like a really destructive and really just kind of classic capitalist monster. Yeah. And so it's really exciting to see that the wave of unionization that started in I think it was, what is it? In New York, was it Staten Island's warehouse? Yeah. Became the first one, to vote in favor of unionizing. And then that's been kind of spreading throughout the US, and now it's spreading to the UK. And it's just really fucking cool to see.
I just remembered something I wanted to Google because I was like, didn't Amazon hire the literal Pinkertons to try and do union busting for them? And so I Googled Amazon Pinkertons, and I found out that Amazon has produced a video series on Amazon Prime called The Pinkertons.
That is so perfectly them. They're going to both be the villain and then also market a show about, look at these bad. I'm assuming they're painting them as the baddies. I'm assuming, right? Yeah. They're not like trying to like make them look good. They're trying to probably
it's a detective series set in the Wild West. That's how it's described.
Wait,
I think
they're showing the Pinkertons as the good.
I think it
looks like it's a police procedural kind of situation, but in the
this sounds like the worst thing ever.
Oh, good shit.
Oh boy, geez, is what's his face from the Office in it? Because he loves to play those roles.
It's about Kate Ward,
John Krasinski's like telling his agent,
and the first female detective in U.S. history. Wow!
Yes, queen! Yes, queen!
A girl boss just cracking the skulls of the Black Mountain striking workers. John Krasinski was like, was telling his agent for years, like, if there is ever a Pinkerton show, let me in. Let me in.
By the way, I want to read one more part of this because it kind of like sums up a lot of, it's not just Amazon. So the walkout will add to a wave of industrial action happening across the country. In recent weeks, upcoming strike actions have been announced by nurses, rail workers, postal workers, ambulance workers, airport staff, border force agents, which I don't know, highway workers, Eurostar staff, civil surgeons, servants, I can't speak. A lot of workers, bus drivers, firefighters, charity workers, so on and so forth. So looks to me like it's the making of what we would call something like a general strike.
Yeah.
Right?
Oh yeah.
Which is extremely awesome. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The wave is coming for real.
Mm-hmm.
Let me tell you about some other news. Not some good news, unfortunately. One of Iran's most famous actresses, Taraneh Al-Adusti, has been arrested by the regime for supporting the protests. So Al-Adusti is one of, as I said, like one of Iran's most successful famous actresses. And this week she made a post on Instagram, just like holding up a sign in solidarity of the protesters and like writing a little bit about about like one of the people who's been killed by the regime, who is called Mohsen Shakari. Basically, he allegedly blocked a main road, and like I don't know if this is true. Like the authorities are saying this, that he like wounded one of their paramilitary operatives with a machete. Like if he did, like based though, because it's a paramilitary force who are coming in to like violently suppress the protesters. And they hanged him for it. So like she like wrote about him, and she wrote in her post, his name was Mohsen Shikari. Every international organization who is watching this bloodshed and not taking action is a disgrace to humanity, which seems like a hot statement to disagree with. And but she's been arrested for making this Instagram post because according to them, this is spreading falsehoods. So yeah, that sucks. We've been talking a lot about the Iranian. We've been saying the Iranian women's revolution that's going on right now. We had a guest on last week discussing it. Check out on the VOD channel. I think it's up. Yeah, it is up.
Yeah, it is up.
So check it out over there if you want a bunch more detail about that. And we've been talking about it in the weeks recently in the news. But I think, this will just carry on being a thing to watch. And I mean, like, especially arresting highlight like very public figures like this, the regime is not going to be doing itself any favors, because it's like they have all eyes on them now, and they know they do.
Wow. All right. So,
Neil, do you want to tell us about the RMT?
Listen, it's me. I know what I'm doing. I'm all over it. Don't you worry.
Cool.
It's all the RMT. We're talking about the RMT. It's more strikes, more British strike. Great British strikes. The best strikes.
The absolute pinnacle of British strikes.
That's right. Just like we had back in the war. Train strikes are disrupting weekend before Christmas. It's happening. It's already happened. I was supposed to go and see my dad for his birthday on Friday, and I completely forgot that the trains were striking. It was hilarious.
Oh, I thought you were going to say you forgot about your dad's birthday, and I was like, ooh, awkward.
No. I was like, don't worry, Dad. I'll come and see you on your birthday. I'm notorious for like just forgetting birthdays and not being very good as a son. So basically, like, I was like, I'll see you at your birthday. We'll go for a pint, all this kind of stuff. But then on the day, I checked the trains, there were none there. But like normal people, my dad went, well, that's fine. Don't worry about it. I'm seeing you on Monday anyway. Which is how most people should respond, right? Rather than immediately go on Twitter and start tagging Mick Lynch, saying, what are you doing? The country, ruining the country. But anyway, let's talk about this. Let's talk about what's been going on. We've had a massively reduced rail service, like I said. It is because rail workers all over the UK, like, they are just being absolutely destroyed by the cost of living crisis. It's the same as every striking union at the moment in the UK. Mick Lynch, head of the RMT, has been doing the rounds of the British media, defeating all of the soulless pundits with straightforward explanations of why workers deserve better. And that's what it is, really, isn't it? It's just essentially that if you have someone that is able to talk to journalists who are attacking them in bad faith by just turning around and going, what are you on about? You're talking rubbish. Like, it surprisingly works. Do you know what I mean? Like, and I think that this is something that, you know, a lot of people could learn from.
Was it Richard Madeley, like, had Mick Lynch on whatever fucking show he does?
Yeah.
He said to him, like, what happened to the Christmas season of goodwill? And it's like, what about goodwill to these fucking workers, man?
Exactly. Like, it's
he was making out like they're being mean.
The way that you could point that to Richard Madeley in the hypothetical, you know, hindsight 2020 scenario is by saying, have you heard of the film Scrooged? Or Scrooge? Have you heard of the Charles Dickens novel Scrooge, where a billionaire gets absolutely punished by three ghosts being like, be a better person, pay your workers better? You know what I mean? Shit, Richard Madeley.
I think it's like there's always this thing where they talk about it where they're like, oh, these, you know, striking workers are ruining Christmas sort of thing. And it's like one of those things where it's like, okay, well, so the way we reply to that is saying that, like, workers are responsible for Christmas. Like, you don't get Christmas without the workers.
Correct.
You know?
Exactly. Precisely. I saw a brilliant tweet on that. Which is literally it was saying that it was is brilliant, because that's what they're admitting. They're admitting
Yeah,
that like
exactly.
everything that we enjoy, everything that produces and allows us to thrive is because of workers. It's not because of anyone else.
Absolutely.
That's right. I'm just going to run through this quick. This is a short news piece and we got to move on. But yeah, Tory Business Secretary has said that rail workers aren't people apparently, should have the right to go about their lives, and fearmongered about the 70s before saying that the strikes were happening because of Putin. Extremely normal.
If you're outside the UK and you're not familiar with fearmongering about the 70s, like there was big union power in the 70s. That's why like Thatcher spent so much time crushing the unions, and like the British media class are obsessed with telling us that it's the union's fault the 70s was bad.
Yeah, I was I was on the picket line with shelter workers last week, and one of them was there to me saying, oh, well, you know, I think it was a good thing that Thatcher reined in the unions because they were getting too strong. And I just kind of looked at her. I just kind of looked at her and I was like, so why are you here? Why are you here? I don't understand. Like, what's wrong with you if you love neoliberalism that
until
much?
Things get like better for us. But
Yeah.
if it's too good, then no.
The dial between like dog shit and a bit too good. I worry a little bit about the RMT sometimes. Not like because I think they're bad in any way. Like up the RMT, my boys are amazing. But like because they're like currently Britain's strongest union. Sometimes, and like they're like kind of a central pillar of like enough is enough and all this stuff. Like I do sometimes worry that like if there's going to be hardcore union busting shit in the near future, it's going to target them really hard. And like, I mean, they're strong. I don't think it's, but like the miners were strong too. And it's something I worry about it.
Right. Let's move on to the next one. The final bit on that is that the strikes are going to run from Christmas Eve to December 27th, going forward next weekend. But yeah.
All right.
There you go.
Yeah, sweet. All right. Well, so the next little piece here we got is about also over there in the UK, the largest nursing strike in the entire NHS
Another little
history
strike
is about to start.
Striking chips.
And what is it? P-mash, whatever.
P-wet.
Mushy peas.
P-wet, yeah. Mushy peas.
I'll have a
striking.
strike supper and some mushy peas on the side.
P-wet's just the sauce. Just the pea juice.
I'll have a
Mushy
unique
peas.
kebab.
It is. That's what it is.
So it's just the sauce. It's not the. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah.
Fascinating. So the nurses in England, Wales, and Northern Ireland are starting a nationwide strike, and so it's about to. Actually, I think it has already kind of kicked off. But yeah, so they have a deal. Like the unions have a thing, kind of like an arrangement where it's like life preserving kind of stuff, urgent care, and like a lot of really necessary stuff will continue to be done, but a lot of stuff like routine surgeries and non-urgent kind of thing is getting is likely to be disrupted, they say. So they're saying if you had something lined up and you haven't heard anything, then just carry on to your appointment as arranged or whatever. But they are, a lot of people are having things kind of like postponed temporarily, which is like, like it is a bummer, but also you have to respect that these people that were going to be doing this work for you, this surgery, this procedures, these appointments, whatever, like their quality of living isn't great because, their bosses who can absolutely afford to pay them more are not. So, so yeah, and like whenever it comes to medical stuff, I know that people get a little bit kind of, they're like, oh man, that sucks because I was waiting for this or whatever. And it's like, it does suck, but like, like this is really vital that, that we treat these workers as human beings and that they,
the bosses could just give them what they want at any time.
Exactly. And it's like, instead of blaming the striking workers, which a lot of people, are known to do. Or even just like people will make an exception when it comes to like nurses or firemen and all these kind of things, but they'll be like, they shouldn't be striking because they're essential. And it's like,
Yeah.
It's because they're essential that we should be giving them a better wage and a a dignified standard of living and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Nat's also pointing out in chat, and I think this is super true. Like, also the quality of patient care, because literally, like,
Yes, yeah.
what they're striking for is like to get more money in the NHS. But like, if the government would just like give the NHS more money and hire more staff, their working conditions would improve.
Yeah.
And patient treatment would get better.
Yeah. So yeah, absolutely. It's like, yeah, so they're not just striking for their own, like pay or whatever. It's like, just for NHS funding in general. So it's yeah, and it's, I mean, this is like the typical kind of thing where it's like things like, the NHS or other public services get run down, underfunded to the point where they go like, oh, it would be so much better if we just privatized it, and then then you get a health system like America. But so yeah, so this is it's going to involve nurses in around a quarter of hospitals and community teams in England, all of the health boards in Northern Ireland, and all except for one in Wales. They're not going to be striking in Scotland at this point. This is going to be the second time RCN members have walked out in 160 years of it being around. So yeah,
which again, like that, they don't want to they don't want to strike. Like they want. Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. It really bugs me.
Yeah. And it's and up until the mid-90s, they had an actual no strike policy. The unions did. So it's kind of like, like you can see how in the past they've been like, no, we don't strike, because what we do is essential and stuff. And now it's like, no, okay, they need to strike. So yeah, so their current pay rises and everything like that have been under the inflation rate. So they've been for years and years. They've basically, if you're not getting a pay rise above inflation, you're getting a pay cut, and so that's been happening for years and years and years. And yeah, so it's like, I mean, it's like this is the kind of thing that happens, like it's like a pressure release valve sort of thing like that. It's like, if they had addressed this by actually giving them pay increases matching inflation, then then we wouldn't be here. And so that
it's also go on, sorry.
I was going to say, so if you do hear people complaining like, oh, bloody nurses strike, whatever, however they say it over in the UK,
that is exactly what they say. Yeah,
like, this is what you can say. It's like, well, at any time in the past, a couple decades or whatever like that, they could have addressed this. They could have, sorted it out. And this is an extreme measure that comes because, it's like all this pressure is built up from years of, inadequate pay increases. And so,
the thing I was going to say was just like the fucking supposed Labour Party like doesn't support the nurses strike and doesn't support like the nurses getting a pay raise right now, because like it's just a fucking joke. But it's just it's like there's no one representing them in politics. So what are you going to do? Like you have to organize your labor because there's literally no one for them in parliament.
Yeah. And one of the representatives from the union has said that it's like they don't want to strike, but they feel like they need to do this to protect the NHS. So so they're doing it for everyone's benefit, not just their own like personal, like wages and stuff, but for the benefit of everyone that relies on the NHS, which, you could easily make the argument for everyone living in the UK. So yeah, and I mean the union boss have said, so there's another day of strike action. It will be on the 20th. So keep that in mind. But the union boss have said we'll suspend these strikes if not just for, to meet the demands, but to reopen negotiations. So I think that's a very easy kind of, Is it okay if I bitch about Is it okay if I bitch about the Labour Party even more? I will try and keep it brief. Like, Nat's just pointed this out in chat.
Okay, all right. Yeah.
I'll do my best. Wes Streeting, right? He's just an awful neoliberal ghoul. He's basically like he's like Keir Starmer's mini-me. I think before we've called him like the Pete Buttigieg of English politics. Yeah. He's like shadow health secretary, and he's actually proposing like more private healthcare. Because, like, of course he fucking is, because he's a neoliberal. But, like, it was this insufferable shit where he was saying, I think on Twitter, like, people, like, I know people think this isn't a leftist position, but I don't want people to not get seen while people who can afford the private healthcare get seen. And it's like, motherfucker, that is exactly what you are proposing.
Yeah.
That is precisely exactly what you are proposing.
Yeah, wild. So we'll wrap this one up and then we'll move on to, we've got 2 more news pieces, but yeah, there's a bunch of other major health unions have voted to strike coming up. There's going to be a couple walkouts planned over Christmas and New Year's, but then into the new year after the holiday period, there's other stuff coming up as well. So we'll probably keep you updated, you know, just as that kind of develops in subsequent Red Planet episodes. But for the next thing, why don't is it Kira? Yeah, why?
Yeah,
Kira,
it's me. Even though I don't really
let's talk about what's happening in Peru.
Yes, Peru. You know, I got this. All right. So, apparently, the president of Peru, Pedro Castillo, is kind of making a mess of things. That's what I'm gathering.
Well,
Yes. Okay. It doesn't seem. Apparently, he's been elected as a leftist, but he hasn't really governed with any sort of.
I think
really,
he's just like a liberal that kind of like.
He like did a like he's like an
he
Obama
came in
type.
as like the like left alternative to you know the
so not a leftist, but
party.
like not the
yeah. So like the average person that doesn't actually know what like a leftist is, like the average liberal would be like, yeah, no, he's a big lefty or whatever, but he's
okay. That helps.
Guy.
Yeah, okay. So just a Libby guy. Apparently he's not doing his job very well, and that has led to him now facing impeachment proceedings. And so now he's apparently, because of those impeachment proceedings, he's trying to dissolve Congress to try to like make sure he can't get impeached. Is that actually what's going on? And he's enacting a curfew, establishing an emergency government, all sorts of stuff. And so like the media and the Constitutional Court of Peru are calling it a coup d'etat, basically. So
holy fucking shit.
Yeah. And apparently a lot of people are protesting against this. A lot of people are being killed by the state. And so this is it seems like quite a mess, and I don't really have the best grasp on it. So I don't know if any of the hosts have anything to add to this.
I mean, I've seen little bits of it, but I'm the same as you, Kira. You know, it's not ideal, and obviously, you know, the people of Peru, the workers are the most, you know, the people that we should be standing up for, and like it just seems really fucking, just a really horrible time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all about Peru?
That's all I have to say about it. I mean, it's not like any particular good news.
No,
it's just more like news.
It's definitely something we should watch and we should keep updated on, because it feels like some shit is going to go down.
Mm-hmm. For
it's
sure.
a dire situation.
But we should move on to the next, because we have another story. Then we got another kind of mini story.
Brief content warning before the story is just. It's so there'll be mentions of child, like relating to child sex abuse, but it's not any kind of graphic detail or anything. It is Elon Musk doing as he loves to do and accusing people of being pedophiles. So basically, Twitter has dissolved its Trust and Safety Council. It did this on Monday, just before it was like scheduled to have a meeting. Like what the council is supposed to do is they're like. It's a group of about 100 like civil human rights organizations that they formed back in 2016 when Trump was elected, for obvious reasons, to try and address hate speech, child exploitation, suicide, self-harm, and other problems on the platform. Like, it's notable that when Apple has been threatening to remove Apple threatening to remove Twitter from the App Store, it's specifically because like Twitter has seen a massive rise in child sexual abuse materials because of changes that like Elon Musk has been making. And like, you know, obviously Musk pretends this is just lefty censorship or whatever. It's not. It's just them trying to follow the law. So now he's disbanded this council, and so it's gonna get infinitely worse. I think people, like a lot of people, will probably have seen that just before the episode started, Twitter has also announced that like they're stopping people from tweeting out links to get people across to other social medias, because they're obviously like afraid of people leaving.
I'm not going to.
Musk responded to replies to. What's that? Sorry.
I was just saying I'm not going to be stopping doing that. Like,
no, they're literally not going to
like,
allow you to send the link. It's the
no,
tweet
yeah, I
that
tried to
sent.
make a tweet earlier posting my Mastodon account. It wouldn't let me, so I had to like break up the.
And if
break
you
up the
write,
link
if you
with
type,
spaces.
yeah, but they're. I mean, just to be clear, they can still ban you for that. But then someone has to snitch, essentially.
Yeah,
So.
well, don't be a snitch. So Musk responded to replies to the tweet that was announcing that the council was going to be disbanding, writing, "It's a crime that they refuse to take action on child exploitation for years." So basically, like, even though this council has existed to do exactly that and like keep, like engage in safeguarding on the platform, Musk has been trying to spin it that the council themselves are like in some way a bunch of pedophiles or something. Like this is his classic thing. This is what the content warning.
You're a pedophile. You're a pedophile.
Yeah, exactly.
That's how you actually solve child sex abuse. You just call everyone pedophiles.
Call everyone who's not a pedophile as a pedophile.
When everyone's a pedophile, no one is. So,
exactly. Yeah.
Jack Dorsey, who founded Twitter, responded to Musk's just calling it false. That's just because it's not true. But Musk's comment nonetheless prompted a wave of threats and harassment at the board members who had left the council, as well as some who remained. Yoel Roth, who used to be the head of trust and safety, and his family were forced from their home after Musk's tweets misrepresented Roth's academic writing about sexual activity in children. The online mob also sent threats to people Roth had replied to on Twitter, forcing some of Roth's family and friends to delete their Twitter accounts, according to a person familiar with Roth's situation who spoke on the condition of anonymity due to concerns about Roth's safety. Musk tweeted, "Looks like Yoel is arguing in favor of children being able to access adult internet services in his PhD thesis," attaching a screenshot of Roth's dissertation. In the text, Roth suggested that services like the gay dating app Grindr should adopt safety strategies to accommodate teenagers using their platforms rather than drive them out entirely. I mean, that makes a lot of sense, because it's like if you put blanket bans on things, people just lie to get around them, whereas if you create a funnel to like manage like what people are doing, you can actually keep them more safe. Yeah. Musk also commented on a 2010 tweet in which Roth wrote, "Can high school students ever meaningfully consent to sex with their teachers?" Roth then linked to an article about a Washington State Supreme Court ruling about what age students can consent to having sex with their teachers. Obviously, again, like, Yoel Roth was not in any way advocating pedophilia, but it's just Musk's favorite thing to do, to call everyone pedophiles when they're actually trying to protect kids. Musk's recent condemnation of Anthony Fauci, top US health official, has also drawn rebuke. Over the weekend, Musk tweeted, "My pronouns are prosecute/Fauci," which is the first time I've ever heard someone make a joke about pronouns.
Wow.
It's actually really funny to me.
Yeah.
As a pronoun.
They should definitely not consider developing another joke at any time whatsoever.
No.
Yeah, and as I said just before this episode, they're trying to stop people from being able to leave Twitter and go other places because they can see that the ship is sinking. Yeah. Basically, Twitter is fucked.
It's on fire.
But that's. Yeah, it's just basically the latest development of how fucked Twitter is. But
Chat,
that's
where are
really
you
all I have to
going?
say about it.
Where are you going, Chad? Are you other than Twitter, where are you going to? Because I mean, we can all keep our Twitter accounts, I guess, but like, obviously we have to go somewhere else. Are you going to Mastodon? I don't know anything about this fucking Mastodon thing that people are talking about.
Let us know in the chat or reply to us on Twitter for now, but maybe we'll make a Red Planet Mastodon. In the meantime,
it would be really good if everyone wanted to hang out in the Red Planet Discord. But
that would be pretty cool.
And then we can freely talk about where we're going to go together. And then we
That's
can
right.
family.
In the meantime, Kira, do you want to tell us about this last mini story that we want to talk about?
Yeah, very briefly, because we're running a little over. But our friend, and amazing content creator, Jessie Gender, who is an incredible trans woman. She's a total dork and nerd Trekkie who I adore. She was just recently retweeted or quote tweeted by J.K. Rowling, which is probably one of the, if not the most notorious, like, famous transphobes on the planet, I would say. Is that fair to say? I think that's probably fair to say.
Yeah.
It easily eclipses her entire legacy as an author at this point.
Yeah, for sure. And so in short, I mean, I don't think anyone, if you care to look it up, you can look at Jessie's Twitter, you can see what's going on with that. But basically, or maybe, I don't know if Mule can pull it up, but basically, Jesse was saying, hey, I don't begrudge anyone for, liking J.K. Rowling's books or, continuing to, like, if you want to read them, if you want to enjoy that content,
like a
you do
super
you.
even-handed kind
It was
of
extremely,
tweet, right? It was
way more reasonable than J.K. Rowling ever deserves. Like, I say, get him out of here. But, like, she's like, no. If you enjoy these books, I'm not going to take that away from you. I just would say, like, don't get her new things. Don't get her new games. Don't participate in the new developments of her empire. And so J.K. Rowling retweets her, quote tweets her, is like, so you're saying that no one should ever consume any of my content ever, not even anything, and she just goes like completely
everything. And
she mentions book burning or whatever, which is like always rich when a transphobe does that, because I think we all know the reality of what book burnings actually were. When people talk about book burnings, they talk about the Nazis burning queer literature is what they're talking about, but rarely are you ever taught that fact. So you're always taught it's books. Like there's something wrong with burning books, what there isn't.
Just generic books.
Just whatever.
Don't think about it any more than that.
Books.
What books are they? Who cares? It doesn't matter.
Anyways, we just wanted to briefly mention Jessie Gender because we adore her. She's been targeted by many of the most prominent transphobes on Twitter. And just to Jessie, if you happen to be watching, we adore you. We love you. I know you're probably trying to stay away from internet right now. But we're all here for you. And I would really encourage everyone to go to Jessie's Twitter and support Jessie, or Jessie's YouTube, subscribe to her YouTube. It's so good. It's so good. If you haven't already, subscribe, please. Go to her, I believe her Patreon, right? Mm-hmm. I don't know if we have a link to that. But please support our friend Jessie, or at the very least, if you don't have funds, just share a nice word of support.
All right. And that's it for the news. So, Mule, do you want to tell us what's up with this episode? Mule, what's the deal?
Whoa! What's going on?
What's even happening?
What's happening? This is happening. Listen, the climate change emergency should be the one uniting factor for every single person to come together on a single issue. It just seems, like a very default opinion that everybody should have. It's bad, that we need to do something about it. But the entire imperial cause governments are refusing to act on this direct threat to so many of us. In fact, the most normal imperial core government is doing the opposite and building more fucking oil and gas rigs.
Here on Normal Island.
Yeah, that's right. It's the UK, in case anyone was wondering. Today's guest is the formidable Shaun from Just Stop Oil, who are desperately trying to get the attention of the people of the UK to unite and simply stop oil. Shaun, you're live, you're in the Big Brother house. How's it going? Welcome in.
Hey, Shaun.
I'm all right. Yeah, I'm tired. But, I'm going to start by saying that I'm knackered. I can't believe you've got me on at bloody 9 o'clock at night.
Yeah, I thought that with all the stuff that Just Stop Oil's doing and all the marching, all the protests, everything, thought what you could really do with is being with a bunch of extremely online people at 9 p.m. on a Sunday night. But listen, joking aside, Shaun, why don't you tell the wonderful audience about your wonderful organization, Just Stop Oil, and what you do?
Well, I think it's important to spend a little time here laying out what actually is going on with the climate crisis, right? Because I think there's a lot of soft denial going on, right? We hear these figures, apparently 75% of the UK public are worried about climate change, but they're only kind of like semi-worried, and it's still quite this abstract thing to them. And, we're still so in comparison to Southeast Asia, for example, like we're still very far removed from the direct consequences of climate change, the extreme weather events and whatnot. So it's very difficult for us to harness the kind of like emotional response required. It's difficult for us to get people in this country to emotionally connect. I'm going to go on later into like how much we've internalized capitalism and individualism and whatnot. But I think one of the major failings of the environmental movement has been a lack of recognition of exactly this. And, we've known since ExxonMobil's scientists did a research project in 1979, which coined the term the greenhouse effect, we've known about the impact of fossil fuels on the environment. But for decades, the rhetoric has been dominated by academic jargon, basically, facts and figures, and truth telling. The fact of the matter is, none of them are enough. So there has been this recognition over mainly the last year or so, that that's not been enough. And like, you know, as much as like Extinction Rebellion really woke people up, it really sounded the alarm. There were a lot of gaps there, class consciousness being one of them. But yeah, I think there genuinely was this belief that so long as we just keep telling the truth, enough people will connect and enough people will be mobilized into action.
Right.
Yep.
So now we have to recognize that hasn't worked, and we have to really frame it as a social justice picture. We have to really frame it in terms whereby we're talking about the human impact right now, what's happening to human beings right now, and what, you know, how that's tied into all sorts of other areas of politics, because, you know, it's a systemic issue, isn't it? There's one crisis, and it's capitalism. So, you know, how can we build a much broader movement that does this, that talks about what's happening to people, like, because that's where we're going to emotionally connect. With, like, if polar bears is enough for you, then great. Like, come on, join the party. But the likelihood is it's not going to be enough, is it? Like, and that's been the failing of Greenpeace and the likes. So, if there's ever been a year whereby the reality of the severity of the climate crisis has become so apparent, it's been the last year, right? You know, the UN have finally come out and said that 1.5 degrees is dead. Like, but the general consensus of the scientific community, that has been the general consensus of the scientific community since like 2015. Like, even at the 2015 Paris Agreement, there wasn't a single scientist at that conference that believed that stay under 1.5 was possible at all. In fact, even then, they said we've only got a 1% chance. And it's been 7 years since then. So that whole conference was just purely an exercise in the global north pretending to care about the global south. The tiny minority of rich and powerful people pretending to care about 99.9% of us. And it was an exercise in systemic racism, of course, because people of color are disproportionately affected by extreme weather events. And even then, 7 years ago, another consensus of the scientific community was that we've only got a 5% chance of staying under 2 degrees increase in global warming. So, but it's important to note that these are just average temperatures, right? It's not like it's going to be 2 degrees warmer and we can all get our sunbeds out in spring. Like, 70% of the Earth's surface is water, so that's of course a lot colder than land, and the further inland you go, like, the hotter it gets, you know. So in the middle of continents, a 2 degree increase is more like an 8 degree increase, and that's on average day without heat waves. And we've seen some pretty hefty heat waves this year, right?
Well, I think it's important to say just on that, like, you know, people in the UK might think, oh, you know, yeah, it's a couple of degrees warmer, but our atmosphere in this country is so moist, like there's so much humidity. Like, people are talking about why it feels so cold at the minute with the recent cold snap that we've had. And that's because the air particles, which are like, you know, 70% water vapor or 40% water vapor, depending on humidity of the day, it's freezing, and, you know, you're walking through ice crystals basically. And the same goes for summer. You know, the humidity is the thing that gets to you rather than the dry heat itself. So, you know, like you say, it's not going to be get the deck chairs out and we'll have a party kind of time.
Yeah, I mean, the UK is going to be like Florida. Like, our
Yeah.
climate is going to be completely changed by this.
Yeah.
Yeah. Here's a statistic to really put it into perspective. The Ice Age was only a global average 6 degrees Celsius colder than today.
Jesus.
Right.
Okay.
You know, so like every kind of fraction of a decimal point of a degree makes a huge difference.
Yeah, absolutely. I've been reading the what's it called, The Uninhabitable Earth recently, and like you just said, you know, that there is one cataclysm, and it's actually capitalism, and that's the big thing that's like missing from that book, and it really sucks. And I could spend much too long ranting about it, but like it is also. It's really hammering home how much like every degree, it's just like another level of like nightmare scenario. Like he was talking about like 8 degrees and like people at the equator, there would be like no time of the year when people would be able to go outside without just dying if like we had 8 degrees of warming.
Well, yeah, I mean, we're at 1.2 now.
Yeah.
And we've just had a situation in Pakistan whereby 33 million people have been affected by floods. About 1/10 of the country is underwater, and it's a fucking big country.
Yeah.
About 8 million people displaced. You know, 2,000 dead, about 2 million livestock dead. About 250 bridges completely knocked out, like roads torn up. Like, but this stuff doesn't seem to like harness much of an emotional response, like because it's like it's overwhelming. We can't if we had the ability to emotionally connect with that amount of human suffering, we'd commit suicide. Like we have the ability to deny things. We have the ability to turn a blind eye to things as a survival mechanism. Yeah. So I'm really keen for all of our political movements really to be telling stories about individuals instead of it just being like, oh, this many million people. Like it's just like unfathomable. So, you know, with the Pakistan situation, I always say like, you know, imagine being like a mother or a father in Pakistan, and you have to go through the traumatic episode of witnessing your child drown to death in front of your eyes. Yeah. Just because a few people, a tiny, tiny minority, want to be more powerful, want more profits, and therefore plow on with business as usual. They are killing you. That's the reality.
Business as usual is literally the apocalypse.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, you know, the mantra of the big fossil fuel corporations and the governments that are in bed with them is like, if we're going down, then you lot are coming with us. No.
Yeah. And you see places where like the capitalism is just like some faction of capitalism is just like betting for the end at this point. Like the things that they're producing are acknowledging that they think that the planet, like the world is just going to end. Like I think it was Mule telling me about like a property sale lease agreement that was like paying as much for, you know, as if you were properly buying a house, but it was actually just only for the next 30 years because they don't expect that it will be there in 30 years because it's like a place on the coast.
Well, yeah, it's fucking wild. I know I've spoken about it a couple times on stream, but I think that people don't. I don't think it gets spoken enough outside of New Zealand about how much the climate change has already affected the Pacific, like particularly like nations like Kiribati, who I think I mentioned just last week, where they've already lost so much coastal land to climate change that they've like there's this like really intense like really, really sad kind of thing where they have just accepted as a nation that their island won't be there for much longer. And which is like, you know, it sounds like something out of an Ursula Le Guin story or something like that. You know,
oh,
like,
you were telling us about them like mapping it in like virtual space.
Yeah. So they've begun the process of making a virtual reality kind of like, you know, rendition of the island because they're just like, we want to be able to show our grandchildren what it looked like, which is like just really like deeply sad. And it's kind of at the point where even if, even if we do kind of hit her on the head and start reversing the damage, it's, it's too late, too late for them, which is, just fucking wild. But they've been talking about it for so long, and they've been, and it's just been falling on deaf ears. They were like one of the first small nations that you could actually see it happening in real time. Like, I remember seeing, this is like, maybe a decade or two ago, videos of, people like every year marking the land that was lost, and like where the tide was coming into, and then just being like, it used to, like, we used to be able to walk all the way out to there, and now, like, it's it's at our doorstep. So so it's and I mean, this is like, countries on the imperial periphery, whatever. And if you show people this, if you talk to them about it, they're like, wow, that's really horrific, that's really sad, or whatever like that. But no one actually it's like, we all know why this is happening, right? Like, everyone knows why it's happening, but like, people just don't want to talk about it. It's kind of like, Shaun, what you were saying about how, like, everyone knows in England, like, most people know about climate change, and they know that it's not great or whatever. But they, because it's so far from their doorstep at the moment, it's like, there's like no drive to kind of act or whatever, whereas like people in the imperial periphery, like out in the Pacific, people out, I guess, just outside of the main imperial core are affected by it, like, in very, like, you can see it happening right in front of you, like, it's less of an abstract concept to
it's so enraging. It's so enraging too, because the imperial periphery is the least culpable. Like, they're the least responsible for global warming. They're taking, all the consequences. Anyways, go ahead, Sophie.
And then, like, the two sides of the capitalist response are either like, well, we're all going to die, and they're just like moving straight onto the phase of denialism where they're like, it's too late, we can't do anything. Or they're proposing like wildly, like, more imperialism as their solution. Like, just like, you see like guys like Hank Green or whatever, like, trying to big up Bill Gates, and Bill Gates is literally describing a manifesto for how to do green imperialism. Like, they're literally what they're trying to push is but we should be focusing on, I guess, more maybe. Shaun, do you...
Shaun, what's your organization going to do about all this?
Yeah, Shaun,
we want to know.
How are you personally going to save us?
I want to ask Shaun about like, kind of speaking of public response and people's, like, disconnect from the reality here. Like, what's like, Just Stop Oil is possibly the most, like, maligned activist group in Britain right now. Like, what's the but so first part of the question, like, what has the response been? I mean, I know this, but, like, what has the kind of response been in the media? And, like, secondly, what are you guys doing that people might not really hear about? Because I think that's an important question to ask, because, like, I don't think the media focuses too much on the shit you do for real.
Yeah. I mean, you've seen the media and the public response, right? We're hated. Like, throughout that, if you look at, like, the history of, like, these moments of significant social and political change, there's always had to be a hardcore flank, right? The suffragettes, it wasn't quite like Mary Poppins, was it? They smashed windows, they bombed buildings. We all know the one about the woman throwing herself in front of the king's horse, And, there were massively disruptive elements to the Black Civil Rights Movement, the Indian Independence Movement, all sorts of movements that we now, like, put on a pedestal as, like, things to celebrate. We have statues of Pankhurst and Gandhi and MLK all over the world, right? But these figures were, like, vastly unpopular in their time. So there has to be a hardcore flank. There has to be a flank that really ups the game in terms of, like, what is accepted as a proportionate response to the situation. But I'm under, like, no illusions as to, like, what the upper limits of that are. To me, like, what Just Stop Oil's doing, the upper limits of it is like, how much can we sound the alarm, and how much, like, pressure can we put on? But what also, got those victories for the suffragettes and the Black Civil Rights Movement and whatnot, was a building of proper anti-establishment community, like across those countries. Like with the suffragettes, women's centres just like sprung up out of nowhere, and there were thousands of them all over the country, and they were getting together, and they were politicising ordinary people and radicalising ordinary people. And they got the trade union movement on side, crucially, and that can't have been an easy feat. I can imagine that the trade union movement in the 20s and the 30s had, quite conservative attitudes towards gender and race and all sorts of things. The Black Civil Rights Movement, like, people often just kind of like think of the Black Panthers as like the violent, hardcore flank of that movement, but they were the community builders, right? The Black Pound and all that kind of stuff. So if we're not marrying like these kind of sacrifices that my comrades are making, getting arrested, spending time in prison, and it's a right fucking ordeal for mental health as well. Like, it's really, really consuming. It's really difficult what we go through. But if that's not married by us building a much broader movement and it being something that rebuilds a proper sense of community, and I'll go into what I mean about that in a bit. But if we're not doing that, then we risk those sacrifices being wasted, and that would break my heart. I've got friends in prison right now, and they've not even had a trial yet. Like, two of my mates have been there since July. They're going to be until February without trial.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
It's like a deliberate thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Deterrent, whatever.
Yeah, which is why I would definitely advise viewers to watch our episode on the Prisoner Solidarity Network. Really, really important. Solidarity with prisoners is solidarity with protesters, whether you like it or not.
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, go on, Shaun.
Yeah, we can't afford to underestimate like how much we have lost a sense of proper community, how much that has been a long-term project that has been pushed mainly by Thatcherism and like the continued like neoliberal and technocratic agenda over the last 40 years or so. Like, we've had an epidemic of loneliness and depression for a long time, like way before COVID, and then COVID came along and really accelerated that process, right? We were already feeling isolated from each other. Our needs were not being met. We weren't getting enough physical intimacy. We weren't getting enough connection, like a feeling of connection to each other and to the land, right? And so, like, I would say, like, there's no revolution without us rebuilding a proper sense of community. We need deep relationships with each other. We need to really trust each other. We need to really feel like we've got each other's backs.
Yeah.
And we kind of saw signs of this during like the pandemic, didn't we? Right. People, there was like, people started helping each other out in the community, and then all of a sudden it was like, oh, people can be nice to each other. We can help each other out and we can feel close and all this kind of stuff. And it's like, we need to be actively building a new world at the same time as saying this shit has got to stop.
Absolutely. That's what we're saying on the show kind of weekly. I do think that, like, when people point at Britain and sort of like point out how deeply sick our like national psyche is, like, I think that Empire had a big thing to do with it, but I do think that like Thatcherism is so much like the idea that like there's no such thing as society has like pervaded us so much. And it's like the reason that we all treat each other like shit, and the kind of British refrain is like, it's meant to be shit, don't like it, there's the door. Is just like we've been told that society and community is somehow wrong, and like looking out for each other and having each other's back is somehow wrong.
Yeah, I think that's changing now though with the strike action.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah,
Solidarity
we're
is
really
back.
excited about it.
You know, working class
Yeah.
values are back. You know,
Hope so.
looking out for each other is back on the agenda. You know, there's nothing like a good crisis, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah,
Like,
absolutely.
as backwards as that sounds, like
No,
we're such
yeah, we
we're
talk
such a
about
reactionary species. Like,
we talk about like disaster capitalism, but like disaster communism is just as like, if not much more real. Like people just having each
Yeah.
other's back, like because shit's getting
Yeah.
bad.
Like that's that happened with like things like Hurricane Katrina. It's like a huge tragedy, but the mutual aid networks and things that came out of that, I think a lot of people learned like, hey, we can do this if we are together, and and some of those mutual aid networks that became proper orgs that are still established to this day, still doing really good work, and so although it sucks at it, like the kind of like the tragedy is what got them there. It's still like I think it's also like a tremendous kind of thing to show what people are capable of. Like a lot of people think that there's like this Lord of the Flies thing where when shit goes down, everyone's out for themselves and everyone's like I don't know like fucking each other over to get ahead or whatever. But I think that if you really look at it, and a lot of these times, I would say more often than not, people really work together and kind of, will kind of work to better their collective well-being, as opposed to just being, the guy that camps out on top of the store with the shotgun and whatever, like from whatever zombie movie. And but I think it's like one of those things where it's like being able to show people that you can just do that. Like you can just build community in your in your neighborhood or whatever. You can get to know the people around you, get to know what they're doing, what they what they need help with, all that kind of stuff. Like you can just do that, and it can start with, like we've talked about this before, about it being as simple as just getting to know your neighbors, getting to know the community around you and stuff, and then kind of just snowball from there, I guess.
yeah,
like
go on.
Oh, okay. Well, I was going to ask again about no, you should go on. You're the guest. What were you going to
say? Yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought up the Lord of the Flies example. Do you guys know this book called Humankind by Rutger Bergman?
No.
It's good. And he touches on the Lord of the Flies example, and he tells this story of, so basically he went trawling through loads of news articles from New Zealand in I think it was the 70s or the 80s.
Oh yeah, I know what this is based on, but I haven't heard about his book. It's like the Tongan boys, right?
Yeah. So I'll try and tell it as briefly as possible. Like basically he finds this story of there's about a dozen of these boys living in Tonga, and they're like teenagers, aren't they? I think they're about 15 or something. And they wag school one day, and they're just messing about, and they rob this boat, and they go out to sea, and obviously they get lost because they don't know what they're doing. The boat, basically, the sail starts to fail. Like basically, this boat is just like no longer functioning after about 8 days out at sea. And then so they're just kind of left floating for a couple of weeks at sea. No food, no nothing. And then finally they find land. And then I think it's about 18 months later, they're discovered by a sailor, and they've been living in absolute harmony the whole time. Like they've built infrastructure on the land. They're farming chickens. They've built a little school, a gymnasium. They have communal meditation and prayer every morning and every evening. They have a really healthy system of a really healthy hierarchical system where people don't stay in roles too long. Like they switch roles and stuff like that. They have timeouts whenever they have debate gets heated and whatnot. They just kind of go to opposite ends of the island and have half an hour timeouts and come back. And basically they just communicate really healthily. And like this sailor finds them and he's just like astonished that they're just done so well. So yeah, I do take that stance that like we're not inherently bad. I think that is like that, that is the kind of the poisonous idea of our times, isn't it?
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah.
And maybe one of the reasons, absolutely, definitely one of the reasons why we have so much, not just climate apathy, but political apathy, is that people have this idea that we're just inherently bad and we're not worth saving. So what's the fucking point of trying?
This is why like every climate book that's like kind of worthwhile I've read has been like, it always starts by attacking like the Hobbesian idea of the war of all against all, because that's the deep rooted idea we've all got, that like if the state goes out the window, we're all going to be eating each other. And so it's this deeply instilled doomerism. Like if the state goes out the window, which we know it will, because like shit's collapsing, we're all going to be eating each other. And they just, like Climate Leviathan and like How to Build a Pipeline and all these like always go straight for like, look, Hobbes was a dickhead and he didn't know what he's talking about. I was going to ask Shaun, you mentioned about like historic movements and their like solidarity with trade unions, and like that's really cool to bring up, because we were actually there was I don't know if you've seen it, there was an opinion piece in The Guardian that we briefly read last week that was talking about the climate movement and mentioned Just Stop Oil specifically. And they were talking about like getting the trade unions on side as like a really important step. Could you talk to us about like what Just Stop Oil is doing in that regard? Like what Just Stop Oil is doing like with solidarity with the unions?
Yeah, so I think I read the same article. Was it by Freya Ismail?
That's right. That's right. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. On the whole, I found it quite a patronising article, but to like directly respond to the question, like the trade union movement is a crucial boat, right? Like if we want most industries to rapidly transition, then it's not going to be the bosses that lead that, and it's not going to be the governments that are embedded in that do that, is it? So it's a crucial boat that we need to on board. However, it's a very flawed boat, and especially when it comes to climate issues. Like, the trade union movement in some places has done some really, really great work around, the mechanics of just transition and whatnot. And that some of the best research that I've read has been like collaborations between like Friends of the Earth and the RMT and other unions and whatnot. But there's so much soft denial. There is so much, like, there's a lot of the kind of like energy policies that the trade unions have in place are in line with net zero 2050, which even the UK High Court recently ruled as woeful and unlawful. Like, so if even the establishment is saying that, then it's really, really woeful then, right? And any climate scientist worth their salt will tell you the same. So the unions are still like way behind on the reality of this emergency, this crisis. And obviously they've got their own agenda to protect their members' immediate circumstances, right? So for example, like GMB is the primary union for oil workers. So we have a really hard time, like even just trying to have a conversation with the upper echelons of GMB and whatnot. So so for example, like we went down to Fawley oil refinery recently. Workers are on strike there. The company is ExxonMobil, who, by the way, just recorded $19.6 billion of profit for the last quarter. They're refusing to pay their workers the bonus pay that they usually get every Christmas,
right?
Despite that being like a record profit for them. And we went down and we took a nice little solidarity banner, and we took a few flyers about, you know, saying that we're on your side. You know, you're getting treated like shit. You know, we want job security for you in the future. And there's so much research out there to suggest that actually there's even more employment in a green economy. It's just that there's not the political will, you know, and they just weren't ready for it. They're not. The capitalism has destroyed our imagination. Like,
yeah. I mean, yeah, that's something we've talked a lot about here.
It discourages us from using our imagination, and so we go to these workers and we put across this argument, and they're just like, I don't care. I don't care, because like, as long all I'm bothered about is, can I feed my family come the end of the month?
Right.
No, it's gotten their material circumstances have gotten to that extent.
Yeah.
So it's just like the immediate takes over the more long term.
It's horrific to see like the cost of living crisis, which is so driven by the price of oil, like hitting oil workers. Like, I'm not, you know, not that things would be like A-okay and completely peachy if it weren't, but like you just said, what was the figure that ExxonMobil just made last quarter?
$19.6 billion.
Right, and like you got oil workers there, like not able to feed their families. Like, that's insane. And what you're saying about the imagination as well, like a lot of stuff that would benefit workers enormously is also stuff that would save the planet. I mean, in the broadest sense, like ending capitalism would save the planet and would benefit everyone. But also like on a more granular level, like I was reading recently that if Americans like had sort of similar like emissions per capita to Europeans, then it would make a massive dent in the amount of like devastation that's being caused. And like the biggest, most obvious difference with Americans is that like it's a massive car country, and like if you know, union power could push for like transit, right, it would be a thing that would benefit loads of workers, and also then would have that kind of knock-on effect. It's like there's this enormous overlap where like things would get easier for everyone at the same time. But I don't know, I hope that people's imaginations are coming back as well as you know, with the raising class consciousness there is.
It definitely is. And you know, we have such a unique opportunity now. You know, there's been, for a long time, there's been this rhetoric of like, well, you either tackle poverty or you tackle climate change.
Right.
When obviously that's a load of bollocks. And like, we now have a situation whereby, you know, many solutions to the climate and environmental biodiversity emergency are also cost of living solutions. You know, so they become far more relatable arguments. You know, if the average person is going to be more bothered about how insulation reduces their bills than it does like contributing to global greenhouse gases, right? The average person is going to be more interested in how nationalized rail and a proper integrated public transport system is going to be cheap for them than it is, you know, going to reduce global greenhouse gas emissions. Like, you know, and so now we've gotten in with the left. Like, all of a sudden, like, these things are far more relatable. So we've had a lot of success, like going down the picket lines and having these kind of conversations, saying, look, insulation benefits us all, nationalised public transport benefits us all, sensible cap on our energy bills benefits us all, and you know, that whole kind of like magic money tree argument that the Theresa May government was pushing a while ago. Jesus Christ, how much has that been blown out of the water now? Like, you know, wealth disparity has never been so clear, has it? So yeah, we've been down the picket lines quite a lot, and now we've had a few like official affiliations here and there with various branches, and we've built up like little local coalitions and whatnot. And one thing that I'm really keen to do now, and that me and Mule spoke about this quite a bit last time we saw each other in person, is like the trade union movement is still like this thing that people look at and they go, oh, it's boring. Like it's dominated by dinosaurs, old white men. The average age of a union organizer is 57.
Right.
It's dominated by old white dinosaurs. They meet once a month. I mean, what can you get done by meeting once a month, right? Yeah. And they're just kind of like going through the motions. I think a lot of them have lost hope that we can bring around a new world.
A lot of them lost hope in. A lot of them lost hope at the fall of the Berlin Wall.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a ton of there's definitely a ton of old like doom pilled Marxists who like they saw the USSR go down and they're like, that's it for us. Yeah.
So it's like, what can we? Sorry, you cut out there. Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt you.
I didn't. I finished what I was saying. Go on.
All right. Yeah. A bit of dodgy connection, I think. So like, how can we? If we recognize that the trade union movement is essential, crucial, then how can we transform it? How can we transform it into something that is far more appealing? How can we make it, and sometimes people like frown when I say this, but how can we make it sexy? How can we make it something that is going to energize young people, and excite them and make them think, actually, I want to be in that, rather than it just being like, I go to a monthly branch meeting, and then the next monthly branch meeting is pretty much the same. 12 meetings a year, like, come on. Like,
We've talked about it before as well, like the idea of just making these kind of politics like just cool and approachable to people, instead of thinking like, oh, just like a bunch of just really intimidating kind of like nerdy Marxist types or whatever, and just like just talking about it with your friends or people that you work with in a casual way, and not just I guess being normal about it.
Being normal is impossible for people.
I think we're so far past that. I don't even know how to do that anymore.
No, I mean, I think here on Red Planet we make leftist politics sexy every week. I was going to ask Shaun. I wanted to ask. You said about the trade union movement being like an important like group or like thing to get involved, but like, what do you see as strategically the other pieces of the puzzle?
I'm keen to build on that, what's just been said, like, and in going to naturally, I think, lead into a conversation about culture, about counterculture, revolutionary counterculture. Like, if you look at like the so-called hippie revolution in America in the 60s and whatnot, like it was the counterculture, wasn't it, that was the main driver of the. I know it wasn't ultimately successful, but it did achieve a lot of things, right?
No, I mean, I'm looking at I'm looking at Mark Fisher's acid communism stuff at the moment, and he said like there's nothing the establishment is more afraid of than more working class people becoming hippies. Like, I think Mule and I have yelled at each other on like a dozen occasions now, like, we just need hippies. We need so many hippies. It would be so good to have people like dropping out and taking acid and like just refusing to work.
There was like a concerted kind of like a movement to
I think
kind of turn hippies and like to defang hippies, right? Like to to make them like these kind of like, whereas like the initial movement was very like it wasn't just like, oh, we're just gonna like fuck around and do nothing or anything like that, which is kind of like how they became portrayed. But it was like a very politicized and very radicalized, group youth kind of movement of people being like, yes, no, we see the contradictions here. We, like we understand imperialism and all that kind of shit. And so no, I think definitely, I think we could do with more of the good kind of hippies and not the fucking weird anti-vax, small business owners that we see a lot of these days.
I mean, we've got so much to offer culturally, haven't we? Like, we're incredible beings, like, and we already have like club nights like coming out of our ears. We already have gigs coming out of our ears, and exhibitions, and all these wonderful cultural offerings. So why can they not, for example, double up as fundraisers for strike hardship funds?
Yeah.
And you have a few speakers here and there throughout the night, just with like some short, sweet words on solidarity, and unification of the struggles. It's we do need to normalize radical politics, and I think, and at the same time, like I said, present the alternative world. If we don't present the alternative world, then who the fuck is going to do it?
Bill Gates, specifically.
Yeah.
I mean, having read way too much of Bill Gates's proposals for the future, literally Bill Gates. I mean, he's even does the stuff you just earlier you were saying, like, use anecdotes because people connect to them more. He does that. He's way ahead of the curve with like writing this fucking insipid propaganda. I pointed this out before, but like he will write like bleeding heart story about Appalachian farmers getting flooded and like leave out the crucial detail that literally Bill Gates is the one who would be buying up their farmland after they've lost it. Like,
I think there's lessons to be learned from Extinction Rebellion. And I was like, and I still am involved in XR, mainly with just like the trade union liaison stuff. Like 2019 was like it was huge, and there was a real valiant effort to do what we're talking about right now, to present a very different way of being. And we did that by creating towns within cities. We basically just like went there and built stuff on roundabouts and stayed there, and invited people to come along and give them what capitalism wasn't giving them. And I think this is important. Like, I
went down during the oh, go on, sorry.
No, go.
Well, I was just going to say I went down during that first big occupation that XR did when they got like 3 or like 4 bridges in London, and I was down at the Hyde Park camp and around the bridges interviewing people, and the energy was just amazing. Like the community coming together and everyone like, there to just like feel the possibility of change. It was probably the like last time that I remember feeling like ordinary British people are like, really getting the possibility that like we could make things different politically. Like really, really different as well. I don't mean like Corbyn was very cool, but like really properly like a different mode of production, a different society, a different politics.
Yeah, definitely. Like, I mean, with Corbyn, with Sanders, all that kind of stuff, like they are the compromise, right?
So I think there's lessons to be learned from those XR occupations in 2018, 2019. Like the 2 major gaps, I think, from that experience was that it was just too hippie for people. Like that being one of them. Like, we have to accept where people are at. Like, you wouldn't just like, if you're trying to bring someone along with you, you won't just get in their car and just take over the driving seat, would you? You get in the passenger seat. You can't, you have to meet someone where they're at on their journey. Otherwise, they're just a lot less likely to even start listening to you, mind taking you seriously. And the other major gap was a severe lack of class consciousness. Big time, like really,
absolutely,
really bad.
100%,
and kind of like an extension of that, a lack of political education as well, and it's still a major problem in the climate movement. Like we've got spokespeople up against the mainstream media almost every day, and like I'm right behind them, and like it must be like really anxiety inducing to go up against like Nick Ferrari or Farage or Piers Morgan or Richard Madeley's the new one. Like, it kind of baffles me a little bit.
Richard Madeley is such a fucking ghoul. Also, Nick Ferrari sounds like a character you would write for a reactionary pundit. Like, it's such he's a parody of a person. Like, it's
What
so
was
ridiculous.
what was the thing that he did this week? People were trying to show me, and the video got taken down. He was like saying something like, "What if a rat got put in a hamper or something?" Or
What?
I don't know what it was that he said, but it was similar to
is
the
it
like.
about the Royal Mail?
I think so. Yeah.
British
yeah, that
media
is it.
is so normal.
It is that. It was that, Sean. Yeah, it was that. Like, if anyone doesn't know who Nick Ferrari is, he was the guy who was interviewing Insulate Britain, and he said, "What you sticking yourself to, Cameron?" And like, just being really horrible to these, climate justice activists. And then they had a bizarre back and forth where he was saying like, "Oh, you're a carpenter. That's not good for the environment." And he's like, "Yeah, it is. You can grow trees." And he goes, "Well, you could grow concrete." And then the activist goes, "No, you can't."
Oh, I remember that.
I think I remember
Incredible.
seeing like a clip of that on Twitter.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
remember the concrete thing. It was-
That's the guy. That's the guy that we're talking about here.
Okay.
British media figures go to some kind of school where they just like iron out every wrinkle in your brain, and then they're like
Yeah.
certified ready for the British media.
As the only Yank here, I feel like maybe I should speak up when I don't know who these people are. So I'm sorry for all the fellow
Sorry.
Yanks in the
Yeah.
in the chat. I
You're
don't know who that
blessed for
person
not
is.
knowing. It's okay.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you've got Alex Jones. This is kind of like our equivalent. Like,
You're right.
Yeah. True.
Yeah,
Well, I
yeah,
said
yeah.
that. I
You've
was
got
saying
Alex
that.
Jones, and we've got like everyone in the British media.
Yeah. Nick Ferrari is like trying to be Rush Limbaugh. He's trying to be Alex Jones,
Wow.
but British. So you can imagine how cursed that is.
yeah. But yeah, to kind of
Amazing.
like to kind of get back to the point, like my heart goes out for my comrades who are like in this really difficult situation, and like right behind them. But at the same time, I'm going, oh guys, I wish you had like the same level of political education as Mick Lynch.
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah, for real.
and one way in which we're going to address that is by having an influx of climate activists into the trade union movement.
Mhm.
You know,
Mm.
get into join your union. You don't even have to be employed. Like, I pay £2 a month to be a member of
Yeah.
a trade union. Like, and it's really easy to get on the trades council as well. Like, and then not so much that the trades councils are a centre of power much anymore, but they're a great centre of access. You know, because you've got delegates from all the TUC affiliated unions there. So, you know, Mick Lynch has mastered the art of political debate because he's cut his teeth in the trade union movement for so long. You know, I think he said this in an interview recently. I think James O'Brien asked him how he got so good. How did Mr. Lynch? How did you get so good at calmly controlling these situations and winning, like, on pretty much every occasion? He was like, yeah, I just cut my teeth in the trade union movement.
Yeah. He
Like,
read
it's straight
How to
practice.
Debate Liberals and Win Every Time by Ben Shapiro. That was it.
So yeah, I mean, so I'm kind of like asking myself now, like, what is the leftist, broader, politically educated, class conscious version of what we tried to do with XR in 2019? And I think once we figure that out, then we can be really on to a winner.
Yeah, I mean, I think the cross-pollination that you're talking about with the trade unions is like a really solid start. Like you're saying, it would draw people into the trade unions for them to care about climate change more. It would educate climate activists more on class consciousness for them to be involved in trade unions. Yeah, I don't know. It's like, it is a big question.
I think what a lot of people get worried about is when they hear about big orgs and they hear about the trade union council and they go, oh, well, you know, it's not perfect and stuff like that. But what I would argue is that, you know, if you think it's not perfect, that's a reason to join. Like, these are some of the most democratic organizations that you're ever going to be part of in the Imperial Core. You know, like, I was fucking elected to be on the committee of the tenants union, and I'm just a little guy. I'm just a little goblin guy.
He is just a little guy. It's true.
You
Yeah.
really are.
Now I'm like, you know, organizing the fucking union, you know, and all this kind of stuff, like spearheading a pro LGBTQIA plus statement for the website. You know, these are the things that you have to think about. And this is, I think, what's really important to get across to people is like, yeah, it sounds scary joining a trade union if you think like, oh, there's going to be trots in there, or there might even be Stalinists in there and shit like that. And it's like, listen, there will be, like, you know, at the eviction resistance the other day, one of the guys, we didn't know this, by the way. If we'd have known this, we wouldn't have invited him down. But one of the guys there was a Stalinist, and it's like, well, yeah, that sucks. It's not great, but you know, at least he fucking turned up and like sat in the guy's house with him. Do you know what I mean? Like, we didn't get him to talk to the police or anything like that, but you know, it's one of those things. It's like, yeah, you are going to come into contact with people that you might not see eye to eye with, but
yeah,
we're kind of running out of time for you to be worrying about that. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, for real. It's like I had a Labour canvasser sometime last year come to the door, and I told Nat, like, let me, like, when a Labour canvasser gets to the door, just keep them there until I can run down the stairs, because I need to ask them face to face and make eye contact. Tell me your party cares about trans rights. Tell me now. And they couldn't. But like, I've said this before. Like, one of the things they said was like, if you care about this, why don't you join the party and try to make a difference in it yourself? And I told them, like, I would frankly rather jump off a bridge, because like like you say, like in British politics, like party politics, it doesn't allow for that kind of stuff. But you know, by contrast, like Mule just said, you know, he joined a union, and within a couple of months he's like on the council, and he's like pushing for statements recognizing, because it's an actually democratic thing. And you know, fucking shockingly, ordinary people and the majority of people do support like equality for everyone. So it's not actually that hard when you have an actually democratic organization. So if you, like Mule said, if you think, oh, it's not perfect, get involved. And it won't be like that person telling me get involved with the Labour Party. It will be like, get involved, and you can suggest the obvious improvements that you can see, and people will be like, oh shit, that's an obvious improvement, let's fucking go.
Well, when somebody tells you to just join a party, they're typically just trying to shut you up. You're like, well, just do it.
It was very much that.
Just do something. Just do something.
Yeah.
It's rarely ever like a productive suggestion, because it actually leads to your suggestions being implemented.
My grandma,
she had to call her manager
years,
because she like.
My grandma for years used to say to me, "Oh, you should get into politics."
Yeah.
And it's like, now I am. And I talked to her about it, and she's so alienated. She has no idea.
She probably doesn't think that you're in politics. She probably thinks you're just doing stuff.
Yeah, she's like, she was like saying, "Oh, I'm really proud of you. You're doing really well." And then apparently on the phone to my mum, she was like, "Is he going to be gluing himself to roads?"
That's what politics
You're going to
is.
have to now.
Caricature of a protester now, isn't it?
Yeah, literally. Yeah,
well, I haven't told you about this yet because I didn't want you to burst a blood vessel. But like, I was talking to my mum about politics a bit. She's always like impressed when we're talking about, you know, I mentioned like we're going to be speaking to someone from Just Stop Oil. She's like, oh, that's cool. But like, I was trying to talk to her about electoral politics, and she told me that there's like secret data that Keir Starmer has that we don't have access to, and that's why he makes decisions. He makes decisions based on secret polls that we aren't allowed to see. And I was like, what the fuck are you talking about?
Where's she getting that from? Where's she getting that from?
Bond
Freedom
shit,
movement.
You know? He's got access to the all the comments that get deleted off Facebook posts from when they get deleted, they go to him.
They think he's James Bond. They do think he's James Bond, don't they?
He's read the WikiLeaks, and he has my secret OnlyFans. He does. It's true. He has access to everything. He's in the chat.
He's seen it. He's seen all of it.
It's so absurd. Right. Anyway, let's get back
on the point.
Here.
Let's do it.
Yeah. Where were we, Shaun? Do you remember?
Yeah. So cross-fertilization. I'm glad you use that term, Sophie, because it's one of my favorites. It's the cross-fertilization has to be deep, right? It can't just be like us retweeting each other. Like we did like a Just Stop Oil like end of year summary on Zoom the other day, and like the social media guy comes on and he goes, "Oh, we've got 100,000 followers. Like we've got 92% name recognition, all this kind of stuff, blah 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 blah." And then I came on and went, "Don't get hung up on what he's just said, because that doesn't equate to a potentially revolutionary movement. It just doesn't. Like we need to be in each other's pockets. Like we need to be best buddies. Like, you know, the brotherhood needs to be strong, and the sisterhood needs to be strong. Like if I don't turn up to my Manchester People's Assembly meeting for that month, again, they meet monthly. What the fuck? Like,
Yeah.
imagine, like, they just don't talk about climate.
Right.
Like, and
Ridiculous.
I went to, yeah, it is ridiculous. Yeah, it is. I spoke at a conference in London last weekend, and I was on the panel next to this guy called Asad Raymond. Definitely check him out. Wonderful speaker. Get him on this show if you can. Fantastic.
Cool. If you have the contact, just let our producer know after the show.
Yeah, will do. Yeah, he's brilliant.
Right.
Basically, he says what I says, but he just says it a lot better. Like, and there was like the panel was like climate specific panel, and there's about 30 to 40 people in the room who like really got it, and like, you know, nodding donkeys kind of thing. And then we got to like the final rally of the day, and there was like 10 to 12 speakers, so it was already a bit of a drag. Like, and the only mention of the environmental crisis was Richard Bergen. He's an MP, lefty MP in England, by the way.
Yeah.
Pretty solid bloke. But the only mention was he said planet twice, and that was it.
Oh no!
He
Oh
said
my
like
God.
people and planet twice. That was it. And I was just going, what's going on?
Yeah.
Like, there's a soft denial. There's it being like an overwhelming thing, but there's also this idea that like, oh, we'll just win socialism and then it'll all sort itself out.
We just do that.
It's like,
why didn't we think of
that? This crisis needs to be like, it needs to have a seat at the table. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and
Absolutely.
we had like the Enough is Enough campaign in the UK recently. Like, and enough is enough. It's like, I mean, eventually it's just ended up like proving to be like a campaign to get Andy Burnham into number 10 or something like that.
Yeah.
But there was just not a single mention. It's like, what the hell? So,
and you think
we have to always be there saying like, why are you not talking about this? Talk about it now.
You'd think that it would be as well, considering that even when Enough is Enough was rallying, like I was at the rally in Manchester, like the launch, you know, you'd think that they would be talking about things like the energy prices going up through the roof and how we're going into one of the coldest winters off the back of one of the warmest summers that we've had, and how that's affecting people's material conditions, because like you say, it's a socialist movement, it's backed by lefties, but I think again at the heart of it, unfortunately, like you say, it's just turned out to be nothing. Like, it's just nothing has come of it. And so these coalitions can't be top down, you know what I mean? They have to be like everybody moving together at once, you know, all together at once. Also, I just want to interrupt and say thank you very much, Mildred, for the raid. Thank you so much.
Fantastic.
Thank you, Mildred.
Yeah, Shaun, like the cross-pollination thing is so essential. And I think that it has to not just be like, it has to be having each other's backs, and it has to be that level of closeness, and it has to be absolute like comrade solidarity. But I think that also, like, where that comes from, in my opinion, is like we need a kind of epistemic change. Like, people need to change how they understand both the problem and the solution. Like, I think that because when you do get into it, you see that it all comes from the same kind of thinking. Like, we were just talking about, like, you know, Thatcherism infecting our minds and like capitalism crushing our imaginations. And I think that, like, well, you know, Mule and I, for reasons, we like the metaphor of the you know, mushroom mycelium, and like things like growing into each other. And I think that, like, you know, we need movements to like not be competing for space, and not like, I wonder how much it's like they're not mentioning anything to do with the climate because they think it's like not their lane, right? And instead, everyone needs to have like the same basic understanding that it's like we all have been fed a like understanding of the world that's all based on hierarchies and all based on taxonomies and like categorizing people into different groups. And that same like way of viewing the world is the one that's like constantly driving for profit over like human lives and killing the planet at the same time. And then when we have that understanding that like ties everything together, you know, like then people can still be like doing the thing that that they're involved in, or they think is most meaningful, or whichever way, just what they happen to be doing, right? If it's a tenants union, a trade union, or like climate activism or whatever, but like if they have all the same like understanding, it's like they've grown into each other, and like their different kind of strains are like capable of supporting each other. I think that's the way that we like affect actually revolutionary change.
Yeah, I think there's all sorts of preconceived ideas though as well about like identities of individuals that are involved in various movements. Like, so I've got a comrade in Manchester, and he's in Unison, and he's like high up in Communist Party, and like he's a big bloke, and you won't mess with him. Like, and like he's quite of the ilk of like, you know, the dusty Marxist, right. But he gets where I'm coming from. But he always says to me, like, most people in the union movement just still think we're just fucking tree huggers.
Yeah.
No, they don't. They look at us and they don't see a part of themselves in us,
right?
Until we start entering into their spaces and talking on a level that they can get hold of. They can understand. They can grasp. They can go, oh yeah, this guy actually gets it. You know, he's not just a tree hugger. Though I mean, like, there is value to hugging trees, I would argue. But you know, and this kind of goes back to what I was saying earlier about like how we frame the climate crisis. Let's get away from polar bears. Let's get away from koala bears. Let's get away from, not totally get away, because then, you know, you could argue that speciesist, and there is a biodiversity crisis, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
But it's not going to be the thing that kicks people's asses into gear.
Yeah.
And yeah, tying that into like this whole idea of like preference of in-person interaction over online interaction. People just communicate with far more respect in person.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
Because there's the accountability there. There's the consequences, direct consequences. You look each other in the eye. You're in the same physical space. Like, people get away with saying all sorts online that they would never dream of saying to each other in person.
Yeah.
If you look at like the poll tax movement as well, like, why was that so successful? Because all the meetings were done in person. Like, yeah, they didn't have the internet then like we do now. Like, but because they were in person, not only did it mean that it was more secure, but it meant that they were able to like build these proper relationships and communicate with each other with far more respect, and therefore learn from each other, put the desire to be right to one side. That's one of the greatest plagues of humankind, isn't it? The desire to always be right and victorious.
Yeah, that saying that like if you want to change someone's mind, you have to be ready to have your mind changed is exactly it. Like, you can't really show people what you're right about if you're so sure that you're right that you will never back down on absolutely anything.
Yeah.
By the way, can I just say I love that you mentioned speciesism. Thank you for that.
Yeah, I think I do think it's vital. I've been saying to you recently, Kira, like I've been doing a lot of the reading on like non-human comradeship and like the more than human comradeship, and like I do think that, like Shaun was saying, like it won't it's unfortunate, like it, you know, a lot of people won't relate to it, and it's not like winning people over, but like I do think that when you get into the broader understanding of what's wrong, it's like there, it's unavoidable.
Yeah. And I do think that when it comes to like the climate crisis and veganism, obviously they have huge overlaps, or you can even argue like are redundant, you know. But a lot of the criticisms you had, Shaun, about the climate movements, I can absolutely apply directly to the vegan movement as well. Because this emphasis on like devastation on this like macro level can be really detrimental, and also a complete lack of class consciousness completely is just like riddled. Like the vegan movement, I've noticed, is it has a big lack of class consciousness.
You two are going to get along like a house on fire. This is something that Shaun said to me like literally a few months ago.
Yeah, well, yeah. So I just want to say, yeah, what you were saying, it makes it, I can definitely relate to it, looking through the vegan movement, because that's something I'm much more active in personally.
Yeah.
But I do think the vegan movement does benefit from having that more focused look at specific individuals, like you were saying, the climate crisis tends to lack. Like they'll showcase like a pig that was rescued, or you know, like any of these individual animals. And sure, first and foremost, you would have to care about that animal's life already to care. But most people can find a way to do that. And I think the vegan movement has definitely capitalized on that personal one-on-one interaction that I think the climate crisis tends to not, like you said, not touch on. Like we're rarely hearing about the immediate like as we speak effects of the climate crisis on like a family. We're more thinking about, you know, what's going to happen to that polar bear somewhere, which again is an individual, but it's really like a real personal connection with the polar bear. It's more like, oh, what a majestic creature that is having a good time. And it's mostly like looking at, you know, the receding shorelines and you know, like a globe with a bunch of like heat marks on it and stuff to showcase where it's heating up. And that's all, like you said before, these are all like facts that are, you know, they exist, but how impactful are they on the person we're trying to sway? Probably not super impactful, I would imagine. It doesn't seem like it is.
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad we're moving into the territory of animal agriculture, because, yeah, I mean, if we don't rapidly transform the way that we do that, then we are doomed. Like, just our whole attitude towards land, like way deeper than that, is, you know, as a result of capitalist approaches to things, you know. It's highly problematic. Like, so not only are we using so much land for so little produce, but we also don't have much access to land. There's another thing. Like in England, for example, like 92% of land is privately owned. Yeah. And that's despite like all the efforts that went into the creation of the national parks post World War II.
Yeah.
Like, and we have access to only like 3% of our waterways in England.
Wow. Yeah, we have it's the same down here. It's wild. And I guess the same kind of like narrow focus, I would say, that you guys have mentioned in both the climate and the kind of like vegan movements. I've seen a lot of in a lot of our like indigenous movements, like a lot of our Maori movements focused around like, you know, like the whole like land back kind of thing, but like a lot of people don't have like the understanding of, like, they still frame it within the kind of like idea of like liberal land ownership, where it's like, oh, all these farms are stolen land, so we should have them back, and those should be Maori farms. And it's like, yeah, that would be like good, like that would be a step in the right direction, but we need to actually talk about land reform. And like, you know, we're not like, when we're talking about like decolonizing, we're not just talking about like changing the owners of the land, but we're talking about like changing our relationship with the land to, you know, like the pre-capitalist kind of like relationship, you know, like a lot of like people talk about like our relationship to the means of production or things like that, but a lot of people, I think, haven't really thought more about our relationship to land as not just some, you know, like I guess like the decommodification of land, you know, and it's like that's like the next step, and is like, you know, it's crucial to, I would say, any kind of like larger long-term leftist project, whether it's communism, anarchism, anything like that. Like, yeah, you know, and I think that's like, yeah, a huge conversation that like I try to insert it into discussions when it's relevant, because I think it's something that like you don't get that a lot from I would say more you know, like typical kind of progressive voices or whatever, you know, like I don't think people tend to go that far. But yeah, talking about, yeah, things like, you know, like the amount of private land, or, you know, like I see Nat talking in the chat, like got to turn back the enclosures and stuff. But yeah, like these are conversations that we should be having just because, yeah, like I don't really see other people having them, right? Like,
Yeah, I just
Yeah,
got the Book of Trespass. I'd recommend that.
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
a
yeah.
like good one.
Yeah, it's really good. I've met Nick Hayes as well, and he's a really sound guy. And yeah, I mean, if you've not read the Book of Trespass yet, then
Yeah.
get yourself a copy. It's just brilliant how he links all these issues together and brings it back to the system. I think, like, you know, there's kind of a couple of things that I kind of want to bring back. So like one of them was like, Mule, you said you were talking about grassroots stuff, you know, rather than top-down stuff. I think that things on a local, national, and international level have to be better integrated. Like with XR, like things got messy because everyone was just left to their own devices locally, and there wasn't like much integration with like the team who were working, like XR UK, for example, and like no one knew what each other was doing, so therefore there was no kind of like there was no kind of like sense of like unified pathway or direction. So yeah, we do need the grassroots stuff, and we need to be building like now we can build like local strike solidarity networks, for example. We can, you know, on the subject of land, we can build campaigns around local green spaces that are under threat. You know, so for example, like I'm part of a campaign called Save Rybank Fields, and in South Manchester, there's this beautiful. It's like an oasis. I'll call it an oasis. I'll put my neck out on the line and I'll call it an oasis. Like it's been owned by a university in Manchester for a long time, but they neglected it 26, 27 years ago, and since then it's been rewilding, and it's blossomed into just this unique biodiverse heaven that you just wouldn't expect at the end of just you know, your average street.
Wait, is this Rybank Fields?
Yeah.
Okay, I didn't even know about this.
Yeah. No one, hardly anyone knows about it because it's just like tucked away, and the university do everything that they can to keep it on the lowdown. You know, because they're the self-proclaimed greenest university in the UK. So you know, it's a bit of a tightrope in terms of PR. So we're fighting that battle there, and what that does is it engages local people around a local issue that ties into a much larger geopolitical, global, systemic issue, and it also creates like an outdoor community centre. So we put on like little gigs there. We've had like Stop the War, have come and done talks, and various political groups and whatnot, and it's provided a space whereby we've been able to build this much broader left political alliance in Manchester. So you know, those local campaigns, like often, like, you know, these big climate groups go, oh no, don't bother with that, we've just got to stop fossil fuels. And it's like it's not that straightforward, is it? It's you know, it's like a lot of this conversation that has been around. It's about building relationships.
Yeah, I mean, my ethos is always free people, right? And it's like if people are, if someone's working in a shitty job and they're being mistreated because they're trans, right? And then like the union has, you know, a union has their back on that issue, and like, you know, fucks up their boss, and their boss has to like treat them better, gets them better working conditions. That is time and effort that they are not like, is not wasted on them worrying about that shit. You know, what are they going to do with that time? You know, maybe they'll invest that time in helping other people through the union, or like with tenants unions. Like if people are not worried about insecure housing, they have so much more time to, you know, spare. And like, it's not just an effort in like building goodwill to engage with local stuff like this, but like if if there's something that people care about and you fight for it and it wins, and then they aren't worrying about that anymore, they don't have to worry about that all the time. They can, they can spend their effort towards, like, it could be to, spending their effort towards liberating other people from the stuff that they are worried about, or they could put their efforts towards the broader, bigger picture, like, stopping fossil fuels or whatever. This is why I say this: free people, because I just think that, like, as soon as we get people liberated, they're going, the most people are going to want to then pay that forward and help other people. Yeah. Like the in the Occupy movement, like they had a kind of running thing of like canceling people's, I think it was medical debts. It might have been medical debts, it might have been student debts, but like they sort of like put this fund together that was canceling people's debts, and then everyone where that happened for, they then paid it forward and helped other people cancel their debts too. And it's that kind of logic that can liberate everyone, I think, and build a really strong movement.
Yeah, definitely.
So Shaun, why don't you tell us, just before we go into chat questions, and listen, I'm sure I speak for everyone when I say we'd love to have you on again. Because obviously, this has gone really quick, and I think we've had a really, really good discussion tonight. But anyway, just considering that, we're going to be going into chat questions in about 10 minutes, why don't you tell us about some of the actions that Just Stop Oil has been getting involved with in order to, draw attention to, or at least disrupt the climate crisis, the climate emergency?
Yeah, it's mad that we've gone this long without talking about the controversy of the tactics, right?
Well, I'll tell you what, I'm sure everybody in chat doesn't need to hear about, the soup on Van Gogh. That was like worldwide news. Tell us about some of the stuff that you don't hear about in the papers. Tell us about,
the secret stuff that only Keir Starmer knows.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, so I've already talked quite a lot about, like, what we're trying to do in terms of like viewing ourselves as part of a much broader movement and trade union stuff and whatnot. But in terms of direct action, I think that's the question that you're asking. Like, in April and August this year, we occupied all refineries. Basically, we blocked them, blocked the entrances to them. And April was far more successful than August, for various reasons. I don't need to go into too much detail, but in April, with just 300 people, we managed to force a situation whereby about 1/3 of fuel stations in England were either dry or almost dry. And it kind of like breaks my heart a little bit, because like, I just think, if only we had like 2,000 people at that moment. That was the moment. Yeah. That was the moment, because now they've slapped injunctions on them, and like anyone that like even goes within a certain perimeter of an oil refinery in the UK is looking at an immediate prison sentence, immediately being held on remand.
What, just to everyone? Is that part of the PCS, the Police Crime Sentencing Bill?
No, these are private laws.
Okay, right. So
by laws.
So so are these from county court decisions or high court decisions?
High court, yeah.
Oh wow.
So basically, like ExxonMobil, Shell, BP. I think they're the only ones, actually, the only three that own oil refineries in the UK.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. I'm not bothered.
Yeah.
Yeah, they basically went to the High Court and said, yeah, this is really quite threatening. Let's slap an injunction on them. We're going to pay you, High Court, to create a new private law just for us, which says that anyone that comes within, named or not, anyone that comes within a certain perimeter of these oil refineries that shows any remote sign of being in protest against our business can immediately be held on remand without trial, without interview even. So now we're in a situation whereby like it's a lot more difficult to sell that as an action, But I am really keen for us to engage in sabotage, and like I'm sure you're all aware of the Andreas Malm thing in this room. And for the listeners, if you're not aware of Andreas Malm, he wrote this book, How to Blow a Pipeline, and he's basically a climate Leninist and advocates for sabotage of fossil fuel infrastructure. And I am keen for us to go down that route, but if that isn't married with a political education of the need for an industrial complex with a very different ownership structure, then it's kind of misguided.
Yeah.
If that makes sense. I'm not kind of making the point very coherently.
No, it's okay. We actually covered the Climate Lenin essay in a few weeks ago on the show. So like, we are familiar, and that basically like the smashing to pieces of the systems that are harming us is like an essential step, but also like we have to have a project that will transform the pieces of the state that are useful into being able to be in service of the people as well. Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, there's often this kind of like very naive rhetoric in the climate movement that like industry is bad. Like,
we're gonna destroy absolutely everything immediately.
If only we didn't have the Industrial Revolution, like it would all be fine.
Yeah.
So let's just smash it all up and go back to like kind of like living like other people, like indigenous peoples all over the world.
I love the what do they call it? The anarcho-primitivists and stuff. Like, they're really funny, like as an indigenous person, and like like in leftist spaces or whatever, there's like you get people to be like, oh yeah, we should just go back to like living how you guys did, right, and shit like that. And it's just like, oh, like how was that? And it's like they have no idea. Like it's just this like vague idea of like indigenous monolith that they're just like it's like fucking Avatar, like that. Like let's just do that. Like,
oh
exactly.
God, I saw the new fucking Avatar, and it was so much like they all had, like they went to see the sea tribes, and they all had face tattoos and did the haka. It was like it was way too much. It was
I've
really
seen
bad.
screenshots, and I'm just like, I don't need to see this. But,
anyway, don't
distraction.
This is a distraction. I'm sorry.
yeah, totally. But what you were saying, it's like like they don't actually have like a plan for like a long-term thing, like they don't have a plan for how this is actually going to work, right?
Yeah, I mean, and if we don't have a plan, then like say we do overthrow the government, and then what? Like what do we put in place? Like we can't leave ourselves susceptible to a military coup or whatever,
because there'll be opportunists, so obviously.
And back to like the indigenous peoples thing, like when I say that, that's not to say that we shouldn't absolutely like be taking inspiration from the way those people live. Shared ownership, connection with the land, etc., etc., etc. I mean, they're like socialist values, right?
yeah, exactly. And I think like a lot of people, like like kind of like what I was talking about before with like like a lot of indigenous people. So there's like a lot of people that I kind of like most of the people that I kind of work with in an actual kind of serious political capacity down here, Maori and like some shade of communist or anarchist or whatever. But then like there's like so many people that I would say consider themselves like political influencers or something like that, infographic makers that are like Maori and have gigantic followings on Instagram and stuff. Like they don't have like a coherent political ideology or a plan for the future aside from just kind of like like hitting the moles as they pop up out of the machine, like this week we're angry about this, so like we talk about that now or whatever. So it's kind of been like a thing where we're trying to kind of have these discussions where it's like, okay, cool, well, when we're talking about decolonization, we're not just talking about like wearing like flex earrings or something like that. Like we're talking about Fanon. We're talking about like, we're talking about an actual radical restructure of the way that, like our country and then beyond that kind of works, and we're talking about like how traditional values are aligned with what, like people, like, because you get these people being like, oh, like fucking these crazy communists, blah, 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 from within like Maori spaces, and then you look at like, like old letters and things from when settlers first came through, and they're like, like, look at these beastly communists, and it's kind of like, where it's like, this is like the traditional way is very, like, it is collectivized, it is a communal, like, I mean, it is communism, it's a form of communism, and I think that it is like probably one of my main kind of like things that I keep on my mind when I'm having these conversations with people, is to kind of break down that barrier, to go like, there's nothing, like these ideas aren't at odds with each other, like they're very, like they're very, what's the word, like
compatible.
I don't know, like, yeah, they're very compatible. They like, it's our like, decolonization goals and our building communism goals are the same thing, like, and so like I don't know, yes, you're getting a bit away from it, but yeah, no, totally, I know what you mean, and I think it's like, at the moment it is on trend to talk about decolonization and how fucking cool indigenous people are and all this kind of shit like that. So it's like, I think it's like we need to like kind of seize on that momentum and be like, yeah, like this is a leftist project, this is, I mean, in the way that like anything at odds with capitalism is, a leftist project or whatever.
Oh yeah. Right.
Kind of like to directly
go on,
back,
Shaun.
To directly go back to the question. Yeah, that this show has a trend of doing this, right? It's good, right?
Well, we do.
So yeah, I mean, like, we're often criticized for not targeting the perpetrators, for not targeting corporations, for not targeting government, whatever, and the fact of the matter is, we've done it, and it barely got any media attention, because. So, for example, like I've already given the oil refineries example. It got picked up by the Guardian, but that was like the closest it got to the mainstream. The mainstream media just did not want to tell a story of how much material impact 300 people could have. That's the bottom line. That's why they're not covering the Iranian Revolution now, right? Because it's a real life example of people power. So another example is like with Animal Rebellion, we did an occupation outside a McDonald's factory, and it's the only, believe it or not, they've only got one factory for burgers in McDonald's in the UK, and it's
I can believe it.
Yeah,
seems like good information.
It's in like the middle of nowhere, so like everyone in this town works at this factory,
a place with one physical location with a street address. That's so interesting.
Yeah.
Well, it's kind of like what we've talked about it a couple times with like Elbit,
it was like 3 days. There was like people sat up. Go on, sorry, I'm having connection issues.
Oh no, totally. It's something we've talked about a bunch of times. But Elbit, the Israeli weapons manufacturers in England, and it just took like a handful of people showing up and being like, "This is what they do here," and that was enough. Yeah,
the McDonald's thing. Yeah, it was like we had people like sat up these beacons for like 66 hours straight wearing nappies, and like. And it just barely made news whatsoever, because like McDonald's were just so twitchy over it.
Yeah.
Like the weak spots for these corporations is their public image. They sell this version of themselves that's just wonderful and sells us happiness. The Happy Meal. You will be happy if you eat this shit. And then you've got like kids screaming at the parents, "This will make me happy, I need it." You
Yeah.
know,
Yeah.
so, and even on, people were getting de-arrested on that occupation because McDonald's didn't want any arrests to happen. They were calling the shots.
Oh,
Wow.
right. Yeah.
And it's
That's
the
not
same.
very
with,
happy.
like, it's the same with like our campaigns against the fossil fuel investing banks, Barclays, HSBC, JP Morgan, etc., etc., etc. They don't want the public to know about their dirty laundry. So unfortunately, we have to disrupt the public. Otherwise, we just don't sound the alarm anywhere near as loud as it needs to be sounded.
Mhm.
Yeah. I think that's a really succinct way of like summing up why Just Stop Oil have been doing those kinds of actions, those kinds of public disruption actions, and and why it's so important to maintain the air of fear about climate change and climate emergency. Sorry, Kira, go on.
Oh no, I was just commenting on how absurd it is that they really do call it a Happy Meal. That's actually, now that you put it that way, because I was raised on Happy Meal. It's just like a thing you don't even think about. It's like a sound, but they really do. They really do call it a Happy Meal.
Yeah, they just went ahead and called it
made me
that.
happy.
No,
Not one time.
No,
Not
it just
even
gave me indigestion, and that made it worse for my parents. So
funny.
Shall we move to the Q&A section?
Let's do it.
All right. So, Shaun, the chat has some questions for you. Lorelei Lime has asked, my comrades in Last Gen told me that prisoners love them for taking the risk of prison for a good cause. Have you had a similar experience in the UK?
As in, like, appreciation of that self-sacrifice?
I think so. They've said love them for taking the risk of prison for a good cause. Yeah, that looks like it. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of public hatred towards us, but at the same time, like, we have inspired people to join the movement and to take similar action. There is something like highly emotive about self-sacrifice. I'm not going to sit here and say individual self-sacrifice is going to bring about the revolution, but when you see someone being carried off by 4 police officers screaming, "I'm doing this for my son," then like how can you not emotionally connect to that? How can you not go, "Oh, that's someone acting on principle"? And that's something that we've lost, right? We've lost. I was in a lecture once, so I studied music at university, and we was in this lecture once, and it was like there was a question about, like, it was something like, how much money would McDonald's have to offer you to take a job like writing a jingle for them or something? And I was the only one in the room who said no amount of money whatsoever. Like, there was he kind of like came in with like a small amount, and then it kind of kept going up and up and up, and like more and more people kind of like were conceding that they would accept a certain amount of money. But at the end, like, I was the only one who was like, just no way. Like, and this was like a room of 100 people. So with people acting, putting principles before other things is like, it's something that we've lost, and when we see it, it's really powerful.
Yeah, and if the game is basically getting people to emotionally connect to the fact we have to actually do something about climate change, then that emotional impact is very powerful. Yeah.
Okay, so next question. Wait, did you answer the question? Is that finished?
Yeah, I mean, like, on that note, on that note, write to people in prison.
Yes.
Like,
absolutely.
it can't be nice, can it? It really can't be nice. We've got over 20 of our comrades in prison over Christmas in the UK, and that's just a handful of political prisoners, and let's build local prisoner solidarity networks as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
And simultaneously, like, they're coming for us now. They're coming for the trade unionists next. The new anti-trade union laws coming in the UK. It's only a matter 100%. Of time before, like, what we're doing now with the strike action becomes illegal. So we need to be really prepared for that.
I'm hoping that sometime soon we'll also have my friend Emmy on to talk about her work with People Against Prisons Aotearoa, who are an amazing organization that do so much good work around prison abolition and prisoner solidarity networks. They have like a prisoner correspondence network for like writing to prisoners and stuff. Like they do a lot of good stuff around that, but they have like, they are very clear and very focused that it's like prison abolition is a step on the, you know, like as part of like the larger project sort of thing. They're really good with their messaging and their education around that, where they're like, this isn't just like, we're not just like a prison thing. Like that's the main focus. That's, you know, what we're starting with, but this is like a long-term thing. And they're really good about, with educating people and having a really good public presence and like being, you know, managing to get on the news and talk about it and just be straight up and be like, these are our goals. This is what we do. And this is, you know, like, this is why everything is shit basically. But no, they're really great. I think
I love Emmy so much. I don't want to overhype Emmy, but at the same time, she's so fucking based. Like it's going to be, when we finally get her on the show, it's going to be amazing.
So what's our next question? We got, what do we got?
Scribbler Rose.
I'm not sure what I missed while I wasn't. Right.
Scribbler Rose says, I don't know if Shaun can speak to this, but I'd be grateful to hear someone address that Just Stop Oil invited Peter Singer to talk on the 14th of December. He said a lot of genocidal and dehumanizing things about disabled folks. What is the decision-making process on who JSO platforms, and will this be addressed in the future?
Spicy.
Right, okay. That's news to me.
I imagine it was. I didn't think that Just Stop Oil were getting Peter Singer on specifically to talk about advocating for eugenics of disabled people. But anyway, go on.
Right, okay. So, I mean, someone's going to have to help me out here, like, with, like, who Peter Singer is. So,
he's a philosophy...
Liberation.
So
you might have heard that one. His book from the 70s, Animal Liberation, was like the first big... vegan utilitarian.
He was the one who said like, can they think or can they feel or whatever, but can they suffer or something like that?
He's a big figure in the animal liberation movement because of that. But in terms of the things people take issue with, he has specifically talked about like people with Down syndrome as if they like live like less meaningful lives, and like kind of advocated for like he like, I think he's a philosophy professor, and so like he's kind of like written about he's got a whole thing about like the idea of sanctity of life being less valid in an age where we can medically extend life, and therefore we should be like pushing back. And essentially like it's a eugenicist argument. He's also like in the process of trying to like advocate the rights of animals. He has like compared disabled people to like dogs or pigs, which like, you know, like not trying to like call, you know, not trying to rule out exactly, you know, we talked about speciesism, but like
I know what you're trying to do.
He's trying to, but like he is trying to refer to people with, say, Down syndrome as like less valid as
he's
people.
being speciesist in that comparison.
Exactly.
It's not.
I think so. Yeah, I'd say so.
And it also have to be acknowledging the speciesist world that you're putting your words out into. They're not going to look at that comment unless you're, I mean, this is a whole
He also
conversation.
co-authored an article called "Who is the Victim in the Anna Stubblefield Case," where he basically said that a developmentally disabled person like can't be sexually assaulted because they can't consent because they're developmentally disabled.
This is like. I knew that he had like, because he got turned to, like, he was supposed to do a speaking gig down here like a year or two ago, and they cancelled it because of like a bunch of stuff that he said. But I had no idea it was actually that bad. I just knew that he was
me
like,
neither.
I'm
want,
going to say really quick, I was wrong about that quote. It was Jeremy Bentham.
Oh, okay.
So I wanted to say that before we went offline. I was like, I was wrong. So.
It's good to hear, Shaun, that it's like news to you that he
because
like the dude kind of sucks.
Yeah, I think the question was like, what was the I guess like what was the decision making process?
And I'm going to directly answer the question. So
I think Shaun's a little delayed.
Yeah,
With the...
Could you just repeat that last 5 seconds, please?
Oh, sorry. I think there's like a delay that you're getting, but yeah. Like, so the question was more about like what's the decision-making process on who JSO platforms, and will this be addressed in the future?
Yeah, that was the question. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it seems so. So this event that this person's referring to, I actually spoke on this event, but I turned up about 15 minutes late, so I missed the first 15 minutes, which I imagine he spoke in, right? It was a collab JSO Animal Rebellion thing. So I mean, I imagine the AR just went, oh, here's a hero of the animal liberation movement, and I've gone, right, let's get him. I can't speak for other people's levels of awareness regarding his stance on disabled people and eugenics and all this kind of stuff, but I promise to take that back to the team who organised that meeting, to Animal Rebellion, and say, are you aware of this shit?
Thank you. Yeah, that's cool. Yeah,
that's all I can
really
say.
glad to hear that. Well, yeah, thank you for saying that. And then I guess we'll move on to Lefty Jimbo's question. I'm a teacher at a secondary school, and I've noticed a lot of my students are really apathetic about environmental activism. They're definitely more doomer than hopeful. How would you recommend approaching them to engage more in environmental activism or activism in general? Sorry if something similar was answered earlier. It wasn't, so let's, what do you recommend?
Is this person works at a university, sorry?
A secondary school teacher.
Secondary school teacher, right? Okay. Oh, yeah, tough, really tough one. You know, yeah, I've got loads of friends who are just like, fuck it, I'm gonna have a party. You know, I'm just gonna like, we are fucked. Like, we're way past it. Like, humans are just too bad, and yeah, I might as well just cherish this one opportunity of life and you know, just have a great time. And yeah, that's really appealing, isn't it? You know, if only we didn't know what we know.
To a point, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, how, man. So this is not like, this is not secondary school level that I'm going to talk about, but it's university level. So I mean, there's not much of an age gap, is there? Like, so at the moment, we're exploring ways in which we can radicalize students and for universities to become spaces for radical politics once again, like they were. And we now have a real opportunity because of the UCU strike to build something that is broad and that places reciprocal solidarity at the heart of it. So we've recently at Falmouth University, we're working with this organisation called End Fossil, and they've been doing they've been leading occupations of university campus buildings all over the globe recently, and they've had some success. In Barcelona, for example, there was a 7-day occupation, and now like there's a mandatory climate course for all students. They've had similar success in Vienna and Lisbon as well, and in Falmouth University we've just recently done one, and it was just a 4-day occupation, and it was just the one demand was that the university hosts a monthly People's Assembly on the climate crisis, and essential to that is the question of what role does a neoliberal education system play in environmental breakdown.
Yeah.
And what this has done is it's just brought people together in a space that just wouldn't have otherwise, you know.
Yeah.
They just wouldn't have, they wouldn't have even met each other, never mind had like serious conversations and exchanges of ideas, and exchange of knowledge and whatnot. And I think, you know, we have to tie this into what we've already been talking about a lot tonight, which is like, you know, the projection and the presentation of a different world and real life examples of how to live differently.
Yeah.
You know, something that has positive messaging. Like, there's only so much negativity that we can take, right?
Yeah.
You know, and when we're already getting battered by the mechanisms of capital, like, we can't just like pile more shit on top of people and expect them to like be like, yeah, suddenly become like engaged in organizing the revolution. Like, you know, so yeah, I'd say to that teacher, yeah, like regular meetings to have like serious conversations about what is really going on, combined with, you know, what we can build to counter it, and how those people can be something, and how it can be so rewarding for their lives. You know, being an activist, yeah, it's consuming, it takes a toll on the mental health, but man, I've never felt such a sense of purpose and meaning in my life. I've met some of the most incredible people. I've been on this magical like transformation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah,
I think
if I might.
Oh, sorry, go on.
What were you gonna say, Mule?
I was going to say that, like, it seems to me that kids would be the easiest to radicalize, because when you start becoming a teenager, especially like, you know, just going through puberty, teenager, like, what's the most common thing that you hear a teenager say? It's not fair. Like, there's literally a whole fucking sketch about that on the Fast Show from the 90s. Do you know what I mean? There's an entire character built on that. And you know, if you find your kids are saying things like, it's not fair that we can't do this, and it's not fair that we can't do that, then maybe it's sort of your job as a teacher to be like, well, there's a reason that they have it like that, and they make us feel like this shit, and maybe you should be rebelling against it.
Yeah, they'll just be like, well, the world's not fair. So it's like, okay, well, let's talk about why the world isn't fair.
Let's make the world fair,
and how it can be fair.
If I might jump onto this answer a little bit, just because I'm working on a very big thesis about doomerism right now, I just want to say to this teacher, like, the biggest, if you're talking about an argument to change people's minds, and this definitely interfaces with exactly with what Shaun just said, like about showing people, like getting people to think together about how things could be different. Like the argument that I've seen that changes people's minds the most effectively, the fastest, is like, is you start with their negativity, right? Like it's fucked, it's going to collapse, right? And then you say, well, okay, so yes, collapse is coming. Like the current order of things is deteriorating and like shockingly fast. And like, if shit is going to fall apart, the natural response to that is people are going to start taking care of each other and build something new, right? So if we can see that collapse is coming, and we can see that people are going to start taking care of each other and build something new in response to and replace that, then the revolution is coming, and you can't refute that. That's actually like factually happening, because like shit's going to change. Now, firstly, like, yes, we could say it could be a revolution into something terrible, but you have the power to affect that. You have the power to change that. You can also, like, as I was saying earlier about like Hobbes, you can talk about why this idea that like, if the state disappears, we'll all be shit to each other, why that's just not actually true. But like, moreover, you can say, like, if we get together now and we start thinking really hard about what we can make instead and what we can build instead, then the sooner and the faster and the harder that we do that with the more people, the more real it becomes. And so I say you start with the fact that the current way that things are is going to fall apart, and it's going to fall apart within our lifetimes. It's going to fall apart within like the next 10 to 20 years. It's absolutely fucked. Like, capitalism cannot survive the climate crisis in mathematical terms. Like, even again, that like flawed book I mentioned earlier, The Uninhabitable Earth, like, there's a lot wrong with it. And the main thing wrong with it is, like, my guy goes through explaining like the damage in terms of wealth that will be done to the planet, and explains that like the damage that will be done by these degrees of warming is bigger, like is bigger than like twice the wealth that exists in the world. So it's like, okay, so like the economy, the capitalist economy, factually cannot survive climate change, right? So factually the revolution is coming. So sit together in this world that shit is going to change. And when people like sit together in the possibility of change, or moreover, like the certainty of change, then they start thinking about what can replace it. So that would be my advice for, like, if you have particular people you want to like undoom pill. It's like, look, factually, shit is going to change. So now let's work on making the thing it changes into better. That would be my answer. I just spend a lot of time thinking about this, and it's currently my big project. So,
well, we've got a
Beautiful. That
lot
was so
more.
beautiful.
Oh, sorry.
thanks, Shaun.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I'll have a video about it sometime in the new year. So you can watch that if you want. Let's ask more questions because there are more questions. So, almost Elise wants to ask you, what is being done to help prevent and get your comrades out of jail?
Oh man. There's not much we can do, really. I mean, it's, the state is getting like more and more repressive, but we're also winning. We're winning a lot of court cases, just by continuously being in them, continuously being in the courts, continuously being put in front of judges and juries. Yeah, we're losing a lot too, but recently, for example, I mean, yeah, like there's been a few of the Insulate Britain ones recently that have been victorious, and just based on proportionality. The judge has gone, yeah, this is after all a proportionate response to fuel poverty, the cost of living crisis, the climate crisis. Therefore, we'll let you off with a £5 slap on the wrist. So we're doing quite a good job in terms of gaining victories in the courts and preventing people from going to prison for things that the Home Office says should carry 2-year sentences. There's quite a big gulf between like what the Home Office wants and what judges are actually, what kind of sentences judges are actually handing out. But once someone's in, they're in, and all you can do is provide emotional support, really. I wish there was more we could do.
Which I mean ties back with like talking about the prisoner correspondence, networks and stuff that we were talking about previously. It is important to if you do know someone that gets that goes inside, to be like a link to the outside world for them, because that's like being locked up, even outside of like solitary confinement and stuff, even just regular prison time is probably the hardest thing that a lot of people could ever go through in their life. It's it's a huge thing. So and so that's another thing that you can do, even if you aren't directly involved with an org or you don't know anyone that's locked up. Getting involved with a prisoner correspondence network is really a really rewarding thing that you can do, especially around like Christmas time and stuff, if you're considering it.
So we are sort of going over time a little bit here. I'm just conscious of the fact that Shaun was pissed off that we were going to be speaking at 9.
I'm all right. I'm sound now. I'm in the flow.
Okay, all right. As long as you're fine with it, and as long as as my other co-hosts are fine with it, and our producer as well, we could go on for a little longer to ask these final few questions. We've got one from Kerry Magic here. Well, we've got two from Kerry Magic here, but I'll ask the first one. Without giving too much away, how centralized are you? Are you working as like separate cells or more as an integrated organization?
So it changes. Like we're always kind of like analyzing what we're doing, what kind of structurally, like what's working, tactically what's working and what's not. And I think like there was that recognition, or that from like XR was like just so decentralized that it got so messy and eventually just, like I said, like ended up lacking enough of a concrete like unified direction. So then like the JSO response to that was to like heavily centralize things, but like there's been a recognition recently that that's meant that there's not enough local activity. There's not like we're not building these local grassroots coalitions. We're not been making it convenient enough for people to take action, you know. And this is where like the kind of like the, you know, the class consciousness comes in as well, right? You know, we've got to make it convenient for people. If you're expecting people to come down to London all the time, and that's that seriously lacks class consciousness, doesn't it? Like
yeah, in a big way.
Yeah, so there's been that recognition recently, and now like through the efforts of myself and other people in JSO, there's going to be a lot more local activity soon. But like I said before, like we really need to make sure that the local and the national and the international are integrated. Can't let things just get messy and no one really knows what each other's doing. Because you just end up with just like loads of fringes and silos and whatnot.
So the next question from Kerry Magic is, are there other groups like yours doing the direct action and the eye-catching stuff focused on climate change in other countries with your kind of level of public awareness?
Yes. So to go back to someone before, I think there was someone who was in Last Gen, or like had
Lorelei. Lorelai's in Last Gen. Yeah.
Thanks, Lorelei, for bringing them up. And solidarity to them. So we've got Last Gen in Germany. We've also got sister campaigns in France, Italy, Switzerland, the US, Canada, Germany, and about a dozen countries in total who are employing pretty much the same tactics with just like variations on the theme. There was a really beautiful one recently whereby, I'm going to get this wrong, but I'm not bothered. Like there was like one of the sister groups in, I think, does France border Italy?
Yes.
Right. Okay. We'll take that as like gospel truth.
It is.
So
it is. Trust
cool.
me.
Right. So the French sister group and the Italian sister group, they blocked either side of a tunnel that connects the two countries, and it was
amazing.
like, yes,
that's
international
great.
solidarity, like on a plate, like yeah, and they're, you know, they're getting a similar kind of like public and media response as we are. Like it's, and I sometimes like, I speak to some of the guys in those like European movements, and even though they feel like they're way behind the UK in terms of like awareness of the climate crisis, like it's just really taken off, because it's like, whoa, where's this come from? Like it's just come out of the blue, like kind of like XR did in 2019. And there's a lot of integration and communication between all the countries as well.
Brilliant. And we've got the final question here, but I mentioned in the chat that I think that this might have been something that we touched on when we spoke to John and Matt from Prisoner Solidarity Network. But just in case you know, Shaun, I think Lorelei's asking, Faye says, we here in Germany have preventative custody, which is used to prevent further actions after we've been arrested, as there's such a thing in the UK as well. I think the answer to that is just yes in general, but Shaun, if you want to touch on how that's affected Just Stop Oil activists.
Yeah, I think basically like the general principle is like, the more you break the law, the more they crack down on you as an individual. Like I mentioned my two comrades before that are in prison till February without trial. The main reason that they've got such long sentences compared to most of the recent sentences, which have been like just 2 weeks or so, is because they continuously missed court hearings. You know, so it's just a case of like, the more you fuck with the law, the more they'll crack down on you. I can't really directly answer the question, unfortunately. I've not got I don't know whether or not there's kind of like a a period when you come out of prison in the UK that has certain legal conditions attached to it. But it's something that I can go back to the legal team on and find out, and I'm interested to know just myself.
Yeah.
Defo. And that is the end of the chat questions round.
Cool.
So well done, Shaun. You
Cool.
won. 15 points to Shaun for that.
You are allowed to leave the show if you had answered badly. We would keep you here forever. That's why we have so many hosts. They used to be guests.
That's right.
So we want to ask you about homework, because we like to get our guests to set a little like next actionable step that the chat can take if they're interested. What kind of homework to do with Just Stop Oil, or more broadly to do with the climate crisis, would you assign for the chatters?
Oh, what a question! If there's one thing everyone should do about the biggest existential crisis we face, oh, Jesus. Yeah, I mean, just along the lines of what a lot of this discussion has been about tonight, just make connections in your local area, in person, build like friendships, proper relationships with these people, build something that is politically broad, and that pushes radical politics into, I'm going to call it the norm sphere. That's a new term, right? And that, always puts system change at the forefront of the messaging. Like, just put on parties, put on a gig, something like, a club night, or whatever, a few DJs, local musicians, and raise money and donate it to a strike hardship fund, or local environmental campaign, or a much bigger national or international campaign. Like, build community, build camaraderie, like, give people what capitalism doesn't give them. Like,
great answer. I love that. That's fantastic homework. Give people what capitalism doesn't give them. Right, well, before you head off, anything else you want to shout out? This can be really anything you just want to use the platform for to promote.
Your SoundCloud.
Yeah, it can be.
Shaun is a musician. That's why that's funny.
Oh, really?
I didn't know how to respond to that for a moment. I was like, you don't want to
Yeah, no, none of them know about, none of them know about your weird art projects in swimming baths.
Yeah,
well, now I want to.
Definitely want to.
For another time, but no, I'm ashamed of it. I'm very proud of it, in fact, actually, Mule. So,
yeah, Mule.
I'm proud to have filmed it. Listen, I was involved.
Yeah. It's funny. Yeah, that's where that's where the brotherhood between us comes from.
I know. Yeah, that's how we met. We met doing weird art shit in swimming baths, and now
that's fantastic.
you're on a show that I host talking about climate change and the revolution. Wait, sorry, go on, mate. What? Plug your stuff.
Shout out. Obviously, I'm gonna say get involved in one of these, in Just Stop Oil, or in Extinction Rebellion, or in Animal Rebellion, or any of the sister groups that we've got out there, Last Gen, Ultimate Generation, etc. And then regarding like prisoner solidarity, there's an email address that you can use to send a message to all our Just Stop Oil comrades that are in prison in the UK, and it's emailallprisoners@gmail.com.
Emailallprisoners@gmail.com.
Yeah, they would really appreciate some emotional support over Christmas in particular. And I think I feel like I've said enough now.
Okay.
Right.
Well, Shaun, thanks so much for joining us, mate. It's been an absolute pleasure.
Honestly, one of my favorites. Really amazing, and like Neil said before, we'd love to have you on again. So, thank you.
Yeah, it's been a pleasure. Like, really nice. kind of relaxed environment for conversation. And yeah, I think you're right. You do make revolutionary politics sexy.
Thank you.
We're
doing our best.
Trying so hard.
Thanks,
right.
mate.
Have a lovely night.
Cheers,
Take
thanks a lot.
care.
Nice one. In a bit. Bye.
All right.
Yeah.
You'd switch
Absolutely.
Did you
scenes.
hear that?
Fantastic.
Sean,
I know what I know.
Sean
I'm
said
doing,
I'm
Kira.
sexy.
I know I'm doing, Kira. Kira, the one time that Kira's on the show and she's not engineering it, she's like, Mule, you have to change the scene. Mule, you've got to change the scene. You've got to do this. Can't believe this.
I
I'm
said
doing
two
great.
things. No, I said three things to you. Two of them were in the chat. I'm in the Discord. One of them you didn't see because you didn't change. I said make the
I've got
title
a lot of stuff
bigger.
going on.
The title's not bigger.
Got a lot of stuff going
Well,
on.
That was a great episode. What a lovely guest. He called us sexy. Ooh.
I know. Imagine.
Yeah, he's
but
officially
for
my favorite
more-
guest.
Yes.
But for more of our sexy comrade,
sexy.
Kira chats, where can people go?
Well, you can find me at my Twitch stream. It's twitch.tv/Kira Chats. I will be getting back into streaming in the new year. It's official.
Oh,
It's gonna happen.
Have me on. Chat to me about stuff.
yeah.
Let's talk about Star
Uh,
Trek on your stream.
Oh,
Let's
we
hang
can
out.
totally just do that. We don't have to just wait for like Sundays and like cram it in like
Yeah.
between news. We can actually like be friends.
Yeah.
We're friends.
Fancy that.
I don't know how to, I don't know what I'm doing.
What?
Okay. But you can also find me, all my links, all my not safe for work, I'm a slut links at on my link tree, which is the Kira Chats link tree, and I will link it in the chat. And you cannot find that link tree on Twitter or at least at the
Yeah,
moment, until
not
Musk
anymore.
rescinds this policy, which I wouldn't be surprised if he does, because he's such a fucking. But I don't know if you heard earlier in the show, Elon Musk, since he runs Twitter, every single 5 minutes he's changing a rule to try to make himself feel better. And the latest one is you're not allowed to link certain sites on Twitter.
Love
You
that.
can't, not all sites. Some sites, the ones that he doesn't want you to link, he doesn't allow it. And one of those is Linktree. Wrong Linktree?
Yeah, it's the wrong one. Yeah, you've sent like the link to everybody's Linktree login.
Oh yeah, don't click on that. Sorry about that.
Is it not just Linktree/Kira Chats?
Oh, because the Linktree, but the slash isn't at there. It's linked.
There you go.
Linked. Then .ee/Kira Chats. Here it is. Yeah.
There's the real link chat.
And I'm sorry, Mule. I nagged you earlier. I'm really sorry.
Oh, I'm just joking. Don't worry about it. It's no, you're right. I should.
I would never dream of hurting you and hurting your feelings or making, none of that.
Oh, thanks.
I'd
Kira.
rather, any sort of myriad of morbid things than to ever see a single hair on your head.
Oh, I see what you did there because there aren't any. Right, I got you.
Oh, you got
that's
hair
fair
on your
enough.
head?
That's fair enough. Yeah. Okay.
But what about Tim? Where can we find Tim?
You can find me at Conquest of Dread on Twitch, and on YouTube. You can find me as Dread Conquest on Twitter, but I'm still suspended there for another day or so because I was martyred in the posting wars.
No, Tim.
Elon Musk personally clicked no siree on my account, but no, in a day or so I'll be back shit posting as normal. Until then, you can enjoy many of my past tweets. But yeah, and I haven't been streaming much lately, aside from Red Planet, but
Will you be?
I've been really busy at work, but now that it's coming into the holiday period, I'm going to be working a reduced schedule, so I might sneak in some little streams here and there. Time permitting. So what about Sophie from Mars? Where can we find more info about?
That's my legal name, Sophie from Mars. So you can find me at Sophie from Mars on most things. Most important one is patreon.com/Sophie from Mars. That pays my rent and bills. And I really appreciate people going there because I couldn't release any videos for a while this year and my income just fucking shrunk. It sucked. I am working on if people don't know, I am a YouTuber and I make video essays. I am working on a little video about Yay West at the moment. It should be out around the new year. Yeah, it sucks. It's a bad time. It's hurting my mental health. Please give me money. I'm also working, as I alluded to earlier in the episode, on a bigger project about climate doomerism and how we combat it and why it's wrong and cringe and sucks and you're a loser if you no, that's not what it's about. Anyway, it is a video about climate doomerism and it's a big project, and yeah, both of those things will be available on my Patreon early if you want to see them. I can also be found on most of the things at Sophie from Mars or Sophie_FRM_Mars. If Sophie from Mars or one word was already taken, I'm on Twitch at Sophie_FRM_Mars. I will be streaming a lot more in the new year. I'm just quite busy over the holiday period, but I'm also at octodon.social at Sophie from Mars. If you want to go hit me up on the spiciest social media site where I'm a lot more horny and advocate way more terrorism than I can on Twitter because they don't have terms of service. So check me out on Octodon. And it's great. All right, cool. That's me. But what about DJ Mule, my best friend in the whole world, my beloved, my little peanut, my little scrunkly guy?
Well, you won't be finding me on Twitch after my channel gets banned after Sophie tells you to go support her terrorism on Mastodon.com. No, yeah, you can find me here on twitch.tv/DJ Mule. It's me. This is my channel. The Red Planet streams won't always be here, though, so make sure that you follow Red Planet Live. I'm going to shout that out in the chat right there for everybody.
We'll be streaming from there in the New Year chat, so follow that right now.
Yes,
now.
So please go and show some love to that channel. Go follow it right now. But me personally, please support my Patreon. I'm in the middle of producing a new video. It's absolutely wild. I filmed it in 4K. It's just ridiculous. I'm way too big for my boots. I don't belong on the screen. It's ridiculous when I look at it. And I'm talking about how Berserk is a queer polyamorous love story. If any of you are fans of Berserk.
Hell yeah.
So yeah, you can go and check that out on YouTube.
I would love to be in an adventuring polykill.
Yes.
Sounds
I am,
brilliant.
so it's good.
Like Griffith and Guts and Casca in the Golden Age arc before all the bad times. So little Berserk joke there. But yeah, so you can find me on YouTube, you can find me on Patreon, you can find me on Twitch, and that's all that really matters for now, considering Twitter's probably going to ban me for having links in my profile. So
yeah,
that's that. But yeah, because this is my channel, you can check out all the socials. Oh, I'm on TikTok as well, but so is Red Planet. Red Planet's on TikTok. You know what else? Red Planet's on Patreon, and you should go and support the Patreon.
Good seg.
I know I'm great at those, aren't I? So we've got.
I was about to pull up the Patreon to show, and I'm like, wait a minute.
You're not the engineer.
It's my little peanut driving this bus.
So if people gave us $2 a month, what would they get on patreon.com/Red Planet? What do you think that would happen to them then?
What would
they get taken
gifts.
out by a sniper if they gave us $2? Pay us $2 on patreon.com/Red Planet to die instantly.
It's not what happens. That's
not
a joke. It's not
Immediately,
what happens.
everyone just sends us $2.
I'm finding it hard to bring up the Red Planet Patreon, even though
in the meantime, while you're doing that, let me tell everyone that our Patreon supports our producer Conrad, who makes the show possible, makes it better, makes it grow. He's doing a fantastic job. He's a good boy, and he deserves to eat, like everyone, but especially Conrad. When we have $400 a month, we'll be paying him properly. We really want to be doing that, so please let's hit that target. But also, we have further targets. We do want to hire an editor next, and I really want to push for that one because I want to get like a lot of little clips around and like get the podcast rolling and stuff like that. So I really want to push on to the next target and be able to hire an editor. Let's please check out the Patreon, and if you do, you can get have I stalled for long enough?
Yes, it's fine. £2 a month. It's Sprite mode. Get started with your support for Red Planet by becoming a Sprite. Benefits include the sacred and forbidden knowledge that you're helping the Red Planet team, early access to VODs, access to the Red Planet Discord. These have been redone. They've been rehashed.
Oh, they
Good.
have?
I'm glad. This is the first time we have a coherent Discord.
Someone professional has touched these things.
It's
Wow.
almost like having a producer pays off, chat.
And the Discord
This
is
is
now
more of
live,
the
so you
amazing
can go there.
content. Yeah, that you will see if
Yes.
we get more money on the Patreon.
Yeah.
Yes, the Discord.
The Patreon, yeah.
The Discord is live. It is live. It's great fun.
And
We've
I'm
already got
literally
members
like
in there.
typing in it now. Like, listen to that.
Listen.
Wow.
Yeah.
What's Tim writing?
Wow.
What's he
Find
gonna
out.
write?
I'm gonna
Yeah.
take a look on the Red Planet Discord right now.
Oh my god!
gonna
How
Oh
do
man,
I?
go-
Tim, you didn't say that.
I'm gonna post
Oh,
a
I
selfie
did.
in there right now.
Oh my god! I need to get some money together and pay £2 to get access to the Red Planet Discord, so I can find out what Tim
Find
Conquest
out what
Red.
Tim just said in hashtag general chat.
That's right. Oh my god, what would he have said? And then if you want to pay more money, you can do that too. £9.50 a month. That gets you Goblin mode. Everyone loves a Goblin. We all get a little Goblin mode from time to time. Thanks for leaving that in, Conrad. Complete your Gobology by going Goblin mode with everything from Sprite mode, a set of cool Red Planet stickers for you to stick in legal places and only places like that. Access to exclusive Red Planet Discord hangouts as well. That's a really good one. The next tier up is Beast mode. It's £19 a month. Holy shit, are you actually going to go Beast mode? Well then, we can offer you all the stuff from the lower tiers and pin badges. Yep, pin badges.
Whoa.
Wear your excellent new Red Planet pin badge literally everywhere. It's completely cool and good to do so. And then finally, we are desperate to get one of these because it would be so good. If you want to go sicko mode,
I want those sickos.
we want those
Yeah,
sickos.
we love sickos here. Like,
You can pay us. You can pay us $100 a month, or
Yeah.
£94 a month, or whatever the equivalent of Australian or New Zealand dollars, or whatever Canadian dollars. I don't know, wherever anyone's from. If you support us with this much, we can only reasonably offer you all the stuff from the lower tiers, plus a very special thank you message at the end of every stream. Sophie, can you give us an
right
example
now,
of that?
if you had subscribed on Sicko mode, I could be going, thank you very much to our only Sicko. Elon Musk probably went to Epstein Island. You're the best and our best friend. Thank you.
I knew she
Those
was
are the
going to
kinds
do
of
it.
usernames that you can do.
Yeah.
That's why I set her up. That's fucking how we do things, because we've got a producer now and things are better. Right, listen, we are so close to hitting our goal for Conrad. I believe the goal that we need to get to is, in order to afford Conrad, I think we need to get another... We're on £352, and I think it needs to get to like £390, so we need like £40
very nice.
more.
Okay,
Oh,
it's doable.
We are super close of getting
We're like
there.
8 goblins away.
Yes, and hopefully already, chat,
Great
you'll
standard of measurement.
hopefully, chat, you'll have already seen, the leap in production value thanks to us having a producer. Now, I think it's important for us to say at this point as well that there will be no show next week, as it's Crimbus Day.
Yes.
That's
or
right.
the week after that, because it's New Year's Day.
Yes.
Yeah. There's
We are
both
having-
days.
Yes. Sorry, go on, Tim.
No, those are both definitely days. Yeah. They are. No, it's just like by a coincidence they both ended up being the holiday, so we're gonna take a little break, but we will be back on the 8th.
8th.
Yes.
Yes.
That's right.
So-
We'll be back on the 8th, and we have, if
Red-
you liked this year, chat, by the way, the episode on the 8th is going to be our anniversary. I hope you know that. chat.
Yes. A
Hope you know
whole
that.
year of Red Planet.
Can you imagine? And I think it's actually great that we had Shaun on. Shaun, who's from Just Up Oil, and also has literally met Andreas Malm, the author of How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Like, I think that it's really just sort of, maybe it's coincidental, maybe it's fate, I don't know, but I really like that, like,
I
we
think it was
started
Ghosts.
off a year ago. It was Ghosts. I agree, Sophie, yeah. No, but in all seriousness, like, I really think that, like, where we were last year, sort of just saying like, well, we're going to try this thing and we're going to see what happens. But and I think getting to the stage now where more and more chatters are saying, hey, I'm getting involved in this. And hey,
Yes.
I'm getting involved in this. Like literally Lorelei, who has been speaking, asking Shaun questions today, Faye's literally getting involved with Last Generation in Germany at the moment. I couldn't be prouder of so well done, Lorelei. And
Incredible.
also anyone else who is like listening to Red Planet and just puts yourself out there to get involved in something. And if you do get involved in something, we want to speak to you. We want to speak to you. That's the whole thing. Like, we will, we'll get you on the show, like Sean.
It's happened multiple
times. I remember we're
times.
sexy.
Yes.
Remember that. You better not forget. Like, do not forget this one thing.
I agree.
Sean said it, so it must be true.
Yeah, he did.
I trust him.
Me too.
Thank you, all the chatters, and thank you to my lovely co-hosts for a year of Red Planet. I can't wait to see you all in 3 weeks' time on Red Planet Live to chat about what the next year will hold and what we're going to do to be even more based next year.
Fucking right.
Who are we raiding?
We're gonna raid someone now. I've got a big list of people to raid. Just give me a little sec to have a look. It's always hard to choose someone. Don't suggest someone to me because I will just never raid them. That's how my brain works. I'm sorry. I've got oppositional defiance disorder.
I was just going to say that. I was like, do you actually have that? Because a friend of mine just found out that she does. And she's like, wow, this explains fucking everything.
Yeah, it's why I never watch like The Expanse. It's why I like find it really hard to get into Star Trek. It's like all the really good
Maybe that's
things.
what I have too, because this describes my behavior too. And like, it took me forever now I start getting into things because I'm like, I'm probably going to like it, so I'm not going to let them win by letting me realize that later. So now I'm going to watch it in a more timely fashion, so at least I can keep up the trends. That way I win, and they lose.
I find that, like, if I'm streaming a game and someone is, like, in chat being like, you've got to do this, you got to do this, then I will, like, intentionally not do that. I was playing through Dark Souls, and there was this, like, guy who's like, you got to do this, you got to do that, blah, blah, blah.
Oh my God,
and
Dark Souls
I ignored it.
It's
and
the
then,
worst.
Like, went and just like beat the boss like first try, doing the exact opposite of what he said. Just because I was like, I can't not do this now. Like, you've just Anyway, so we're all
right. Well, listen. Anyway, we're going to be raiding Queen Pib. She's a great friend of mine. She's an excellent drag queen. Her stream has got some of the best production value I've ever seen in my entire life. Wow. You're going to enjoy it. She's playing a game called The Saboteur. I don't know what it's about. I've never seen it.
Sounds based.
Yeah, don't have a go at me if it's not as fun as you wanted it to be. That's my disclaimer. Right. Okay. We'll see you in the new year, chat. Thank you so much for being here.
Bye, my sweets.
Bye.
Bye. Bye. Bye.